stage. Because if you don't set the stage in the beginning, it is that much harder to get them to go to a public adjuster, or get them to go to an attorney, or get them to go to appraisal. Why couldn't you have done it? You didn't tell me about this in the beginning. You told me if you were here that you would get the job, and I would have no issues whatsoever. And now the adjuster from the insurance company is telling me that you don't know what you're doing and I should hire their preferred service contractor. What sets your company apart? You must sell the story. In the beginning of my sales experience, one of the things that I got told is the story is how you get paid. If you're not telling the right story, you're not getting a paycheck. So none of us get paid until when? The job is complete or the customer gets paid. So what story are you telling in the beginning to make sure that you can get paid? That's a good one. Treat you like a neighbor. How much time are you spending educating the consumers? I love hearing the stories about when a disaster happens, you'll have all these contractors run into an area and sign up 300 or 400 claims. How can you spend any time with a customer and sign up 300 or 400 claims and tell them what might happen in the claims process? Can you? I mean, I know I'm from Texas and I talk slow, but I don't think I can talk to 300 people and tell them what's going to happen in the claims process in a short amount of time. That would take me a while. So what are you telling the customers when you sit down and tell them about what might happen in the claims process? Because the story that carrier's telling is going to be totally different. I have a preferred service contractor. They can do it all. We work with them all the time. They're not going to take advantage of you. I'm going to give you a little example for all you public adjusters in here on the letter of representation on telling a story and creating a narrative. When you have them sign up your letter of representation, your explanation to them should be, look, you're hiring me to be your advocate for you. If you don't want an advocate for you, do not sign the contract. Because as soon as I email this in, fax it in, mail it in, whatever you do to get it to the carrier's going to do what? They're going to turn around and call that customer and say, yeah, wait, just a second. I think if you get rid of that public adjuster, we'll come back out and do a re-inspection for you. I think that if you get rid of that PA, that we probably help you out and send one of our preferred service contractors out there to check on anything that we missed. If you don't have that conversation with them in the beginning, if you take that phone call and you don't tell them, I have hired a public adjuster, you need to contact them, then they should have never signed up the claim. Yeah. You didn't create the narrative that it takes to get the job done correctly. Let me start by saying this. Another simple thing. You cannot, by any means, and we hear this all the time in Texas, you can't tell them, if I'm not here, the insurance company's going to rip you off. You can't. Like I said earlier, the insurance company's spending millions of dollars every single year on telling them they're going to take care of them. Their agent calls them on their birthday. When it's Christmas time, when it's their anniversary, they're hearing from their agent. They think their agent's their friend. In a lot of cases, they are. But you have to know this. If you go in there from the standpoint that they're going to rip them off in the very beginning, they're not going to believe you. They're going to think you're the liar. You're the liar. My agent would never lie to me. My adjuster would never lie to me. So make it simple. If I'm there, the majority of these things are handled the first time I'm there at the inspection. If they don't, I'll go over your options with you at that point in time. It's that simple. Because now, when they do get turned down, guess what? They're that 1 out of 10 people that didn't get bought. And now they're a little upset. Now it's become emotional for them. If you don't get them emotional, I know Steve didn't talk about this yesterday, but I've heard him talk about it in the past. If you don't get them emotional, they're not going to buy. You're not going to hook them. And you got to hook them from the beginning. Because we know, we're in the industry. We see how people get taken advantage of every single day. We got to stop reacting and be proactive. The claims game, it's a moving target. What works today won't work tomorrow, and what worked yesterday may work again. Everybody agree with that? I mean, it's serious. Things that we did 5 years ago are starting to work again. Things that we did yesterday that worked aren't working. So there's not going to be a magic pill that works every time. All we can do is work according to the policy like Cal loves to talk about. That policy is our guide. It's our playbook. It says it in the policy. That's the rules. But you can't be upset when some carriers don't play by the rules. Do they like to play by the rules? Not all the time. So I have a couple stories based on this storm. Seems like a pretty simple claim, don't you think?
I would think so.
You had 3-inch hail, solid, dense hail in North Texas in 2016. This is one of my best friends. He was a groomsman in my wedding. And Allstate said, yeah, you got damage to your roof, man. It's in bad shape. We're going to go ahead and pay for your roof. We're going to pay for your decking. But let's be honest. You should have got out there and tarped that thing. We don't care that you have water damage inside your house and part of your house flooded. You should have tarped it. We're not paying for any of the water damage. Grapefruit-sized holes in this roof. And do you think that's a 10 by 10 section? That's 2 freaking holes, 2 feet apart. The hail went through his roof, went through his sheetrock, and hit a 60-inch TV on his wall in his game room and shattered the screen.
Difficult.
He was in a closet on the first floor with his family, just praying that they didn't get killed. And the insurance company said, you should have tarped it. We're not paying for any of the water damage. Very reasonable. That's fair and reasonable, right?
Was that in 2016?
That was in 2016. Yeah. It was actually the March 2017 storm. So we have to treat people, though, how you want to be treated. Somebody else, once again, said this yesterday. I don't remember who it was. But you got to treat them how you want to be treated. The old saying is you're going to get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. If you're not treating people how you want to be treated, they're going to treat you badly. You can't expect that every adjuster that you meet out in the field has had a great day. We get to hear stories all the time about the contractor that threatened to beat them up on the last claim, or the contractor that stole the ladder and walked off and left them on the roof. What if it's not something like that? What if they're going through a divorce? What if a family member is dealing with cancer and they're having a rough day? You don't know what they're going through. I don't know, anybody you think here know who Steve Badger is? Okay, a few of you. Our good buddy Steve Badger, he loves to tell everybody to be nice. I like to say be professional. We are a professional industry. You need to be professional. You can agree to disagree. You can be firm without threatening to beat them up. You don't have to yell and scream at them and cuss at them and tell them they're an idiot. But you can be firm. And you can agree to disagree. Relationships matter in this industry. I can tell you this. I've been out on claims where an adjuster that I'd met previously had a bad experience, and he was let's just call him a turd. And then I see him again 6 months later, and he says, I was having a bad day. I really appreciate you not yelling and screaming at me that day. And because I knew you were a professional, I'm going to make sure we get this roof bought. It's a whole different experience versus them fighting with you the whole time because they want to win. Because the last contractor threatened to beat them up or arguing with them over, who knows, I get $2,000 a square for $3,000. Come on. The carriers have an army of people. I don't know how many of you were IAs in the past, but when one of your teammates does something, they go back to the office and they talk to their friends. They talk to their team. And they let them know, that Cal Spoon, man, he gets so mad.
What?
He just doesn't want to negotiate. Insurance companies are gamblers. If you haven't figured that out yet, it's easy to figure out. So in 2020, we had the largest first-party claim verdict in the state of Oklahoma. And last year in Texas, we had the largest first-party jury verdict in the state of Texas. In 10 years, I've only been to trial 4 times. Once with Chip Merlin, and after jury selection, and they saw us in the box waiting to testify, they decided to settle before they started doing our testimony. The second time I was parking outside the court, and they decided to settle before we came in. The 2 times that I have testified were both the largest verdicts for Oklahoma and the state of Texas. So, and I have to say, this was probably one of the dumbest claims that I've ever been involved with. This shows you the extreme that a carrier is willing to go in order to prove their point. I need another glass of water before I finish my statement here. So, remember the story from March 2017? This was the commercial building, not the residential building. It was a commercial building. So my client bought the building in November 2016. He bought it pretty cheap. It was a distressed sale. And he planned on remodeling the building and making it into a data center and office space. He had a contract with Amazon to help fulfill their data center. Great contract to have. So the carrier was like, man, you paid this much for it, but you want to insure it for this much. We're going to have to do our due diligence and make sure that this property qualifies to be insured. They sent 3 different underwriting inspectors out to the property, 2 of which said the roof was in excellent condition. The third, a manager, said this is the Cadillac of all roofs. The Cadillac of all roofs and underwriting. So they bought the building, they got their insurance, and in March 2017, 5 months later, they got cannonball size hail, 3-inch hail on the roof. You would think that this would be an easy case. An easy case. Property owners come in the next day. They notice that there's leaking inside their building. There's water on the ground, and you can't have water in a data center. It is a clean room. They vacuum seal this thing and have microparticles and all that stuff. The germ guy, whatever, he could tell you more about it, but it was ridiculous. So they call the roofer. And the roofer comes out and he tells them, hey, you have a ton of damage, you need to file a claim. Before you file a claim, I need you to know this. Most likely the insurance company is going to pay the claim, but if they don't, we'll give you your options at that point in time. You may need to hire a public adjuster. And you would think, cannonball size hell, why the hell would he need to tell them that? Why? Set the narrative. Because insurance companies are gamblers. So he meets with the adjuster. You know, it's a medium-sized commercial building, 70,000 square feet, in McKinney, Texas. And the insurance adjuster comes out. We find out later in trial that this was his first commercial inspection. Never been on a commercial roof before in his life. He had been a desk adjuster until that day.
Wow.
But they needed help in the field, so he got to be the help in the field. He wrote an estimate for $16,000 worth of damage to some of the metal flashings and the carports on the property. So the roofer's like, hey, apparently they're in for a fight. You're going to need to hire that public adjuster. So then we got involved. We went out there with our moisture meters and our infrared scans and our drones, and we documented the property over 2 days. Took a couple thousand pictures of damage, and submitted all that package and that report to the insurance company, expecting they're going to buy the roof. Nope, we get a call from the manager. We're going to send an adjuster back out. Great. Don't send the guy out that doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Guess who came back out? The same guy. The same guy, I forgot to mention, he spent less than an hour at the property and never looked at one leak inside the building. Not one. So we were there with him, and after about an hour, he wanted to go home. We're like, wait, we haven't even done anything yet. We're just looking at the outside of the building. We haven't looked at any leaks. We haven't even gotten on the roof yet. So we dragged him around the building, showing him all the leaks inside the building. He's taking pictures, documenting everything that we're pointing out to him. We get on the roof, and we're like, why wouldn't we pay for simple stuff? Had 25 10-ton air conditioners on it because that data center has to be kept chilled all the time. It can't get hot. They got to keep it at below 60 degrees 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So it had a bunch of big air conditioners on it. All the coils were smashed. He didn't even pay for combing of the fence. That would have been the simplest thing, right? He didn't do that. So after we're there with him for about 4 hours, he says, you know what, this is above my authority. I'm going to need to get an engineer. Awesome. We'll meet with you and your engineer. After a few more weeks, the engineer comes out, and we are showing him the same type of damage that we showed the adjuster. He's taking picture after picture. We're showing him fractures in the membrane. We're showing him leaks in the interior of the building. We think, you know, he's nodding his head. We have his attention. He understands what we're showing him. 4 weeks later, we get a report back that's 16 pages long with not a single picture of damage. And he says it's all old wear and tear. Now remember, at this point in time, they don't know that we know that the underwriter wrote a report saying that the roof was the Cadillac of all roofs, and 2 additional guys said that it was in excellent condition. So we had already told the property owner that if we can't get it bought, we have an option for him. We introduced him to an attorney out of San Antonio, and he took on the case. Now, most of the attorneys in here will tell you that the majority of these claims never make it to trial. The insurance company eventually looks at it, and they weigh their pros on whether or not this thing's going to be a good one or a bad one. Because they're gamblers. They're gamblers. The attorneys actually told the insurance company they need to settle. I remember being part of that mediation. They told them they need to settle. We don't need to take this to trial. They took it to trial. So, that engineer that was with us for the day, taking pictures and documentation, that did a 16-page report with not one picture of damage, had to turn over his file for trial. He had taken over 1,300 pictures that day. Over 1,000 of them had damage to the property, including 33 fractures that he identified in the roof. How do you think that went with the jury? So because we went to trial, the insurance company also hired a roof consultant to help with a desaturation test of the roof. And the consultant, during his testimony, puts a picture up showing that the roof is completely underwater in February, I think it was 2019. And then he shows 12 samples of no water in the substrate. In his testimony, though, he got to tell the jury that even though he took that picture and did his inspection in February, he came back out and took the core samples in August. Anybody know what happens in Texas in August? We had more than 130 days without rain, over 90 days that year with over 100-degree temperatures. Do you think he would have found water? No. So at the end, the jury got to decide. We got a unanimous verdict. Like I said, 700,000 square foot roof or 70,000 square foot roof. And we got a verdict for $3.6 million. We got your breach, we got your trouble damages, all that fun stuff, attorney's fees. And the customer was very happy. And it's all about the relationships. The relationships that I gained from the roofing contractor, the relationship I gained from the engineer, from the attorney. It was a great experience. It's all about relationships. So we have to work together, and we have to be a team. We got to understand what our why is. And the biggest key to all this is educating the consumers. We have to be educating the consumers. Treat others how you want to be treated, and relationships matter. I'm Ron Stomper with National Claims, and we tell you not to stress. We will get you the money. Derek has some money if you guys are interested. He's going to throw it out into the audience. Any questions?
I'm a bad catcher.
Show me you don't mind.
Forgive Eric or Derek. He's injured.
This isn't real.
Do any of you guys have any questions? Thoughts, concerns, conjectures,
Who's the attorney in
complaints?
San Antonio?
Matthew Pearson.
Okay.
So Matthew, I've known since the beginning, and that was actually the first claim that I did with him.
Who's on the defense side?
Thompson Co.
Okay.
Probably heard of them before.
You? Good job, man.
It was entertaining though when they told, oh, I forgot to mention, the claim was State Farm. They don't insure many commercial buildings, but they insured this one.
Yeah, what did you get the underwriting for? You indicated that you.
We got it by accident.
Oh.
We requested all documents associated with the claim when we got involved. And the guy that had never been an adjuster out in the field sent it to us. So we kept that little tidbit to ourselves.
Sweet.
Didn't matter though, when we did submit our package, they didn't care. It was entertaining to watch the underwriter when they asked him if he insured crappy roofs. Because they said that all the damage was old and the roof was in crappy condition. Y'all are easy. I know it's 8:30, maybe 9:30. Yeah, 9:30. I guess that's my time this morning.
Ron,
Thank you.
is this scenario, is it unique?
You know, I'm gonna say that it's unique, but I say this. You never know when an insurance company is just gonna gamble. You have no idea. It's ridiculous. The fact that they knew that there was damage, they already knew they were gonna eventually pay for it at some point in time. But they were willing to risk the fact that he wouldn't hire the right contractor, and that contractor wouldn't tell him about a public adjuster, and that public adjuster would deal with it for a couple of years and not send it to an attorney. They relied on all of that. This was a good case scenario and what you're supposed to do in creating the narrative along the way. Jack?
When did you flip it over to the attorney? How long did you work it?
So we were probably involved with it about 6 months,
There you go.
and it's based on the fact that we have timelines that we set. We give them a chance
Sure.
to do what's right.
I think most of us have a tendency to hold them on too long.
Yet I would agree 100% on that. I mean, I'll get calls from PAs asking for advice, and they've been fighting with the claim for a year and a half. And I'm
Ooh.
like, why?
Yikes.
What have they done? What have you done? If you have your package, Cal's gonna beat this home. If you put together your documentation and you prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they owe under that policy for that claim, you give them an opportunity to deny it, but you don't just keep fighting with them for the next 6 months because you're wrong.
Hope is not a business model.
I love that. Hope is not a business model. Jack said that yesterday. That was awesome. I actually wrote that down on my notes yesterday.
Trademark, so send it check.
But insurance companies are going to gamble, and you have no idea when they're going to gamble. This one didn't make any sense whatsoever on why they would gamble. Cannonball-sized hail does damage to anything. The day we were there doing the inspection with the adjuster for the second time, they were re-roofing the roof next door to us. And it was, yeah. Anyway,
They're done now.
been there, done that. What happened to their roof? Why is their roof not wear and tear and old damage?
State Farm not doing, or what, I don't see State Farm is paying.
So we got the verdict. They immediately said they were going to appeal it if we did an NDA for an undisclosed amount. So basically they paid us something not to appeal it. But our client was extremely happy. He actually added another 70,000 square feet to his building after the claim.
So can we change that narrative from flipping it to an attorney to what it should be, because I think it gives it a very negative connotation.
I understand that.
If you're flipping it, it means that you didn't actually, or it would insinuate that you didn't do your job. So the flipping thing and calling it a game and things like that is things that I've absolutely been trying to get away from. It's not flipping. If you finished your job, what do you do next?
You recommend an attorney.
Flipping. Yeah, our vocabulary is very important, and the words that we say are used against us by folks like Steve Madden.
Oh yeah, I know. I keep using flood. It's not flood. Once again, thank you guys for letting me come out. I don't know who's next.
We're going to get set up for our next speaker here, Thomas Hargo. We talk about duties in the event of loss of the real world event. Just about 2 minutes here to get okay.
And
You good?
how are you, sir?
I'm on another level. How are you?
I love it. It's good. I got good rest last night.
Oh yeah, slept good.
Yeah. I'm going home tonight. As much as I enjoy this, I'm looking forward to being home.
Oh yeah, in your own bed.
Yeah.
Before you hit the road again.
Yeah. I'm actually hitting the road on Monday, driving to Tulsa.
Speaking
Dallas,
engagement.
because I'm buying a car.
Oh.
And they happen to have an exceptional deal on just the car I want.
Uh-huh.
It's a 4-hour drive, so I'm driving with my son Adam.
You crossing state lines? Or?
Yeah, to Oklahoma, from Dallas to
You know they
Tulsa.
call it jurisdictional shopping. You ever heard of that? I'm gonna be talking about that.
Okay, good.
Uh-huh. Same reason why the top 5 companies in America are based out of Delaware.
Yep.
Even though that's not their home office.
Yeah.
As Americans, we have the right to jurisdictional shop wherever we want. Because what contract are you going to use? A Texas contract or Oklahoma contract?
Oklahoma.
See, but
Yeah.
it's your prerogative.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be talking about that. A lot of people feel limited based off the laws and the rules of their state. However, it's some stuff that I know that I'm going to share.
That's really interesting because Oklahoma doesn't have lemon laws. I looked into that.
So what you gonna make sure it's a Texas contract?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, because you have the right to decide, like just like you have the right to where you want to domicile your business for the best advantages, and you can also cite as a trust anywhere you want. It's a lot of different stuff around.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I did not know that. Learn something new every day, don't I?
That's why we come to these things. How you doing, man? You good? Good morning.
Good morning. I guess we're going to get rolling again. Okay, good morning. My name is Tom Herdro. I'm an attorney. I am licensed to practice in the states of Illinois and Indiana. Sean asked me to speak on this topic late summer this year, and as we neared the event, I changed my perspective and my purpose a little bit. And I think you're going to hear a lot of things that you've already heard from other people.
Can you speak up just a little
A little bit.
Yeah, probably hold it closer to your mouth.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to give you a little bit of my background, which is somewhat unique. Everybody in here has a unique background, came here from different paths and different reasons. I first became exposed to insurance when I was in college. I took a couple of insurance classes and I really enjoyed it. Got out of college, really didn't have a strong direction in my life. Within a year and a half, I had a couple of jobs that didn't appeal to me and didn't work out very well. And in 1980, I ended up as an insurance adjuster here in the Chicago area, field adjuster. So the primary reason I took the job at that point, I really knew nothing about it, was that they were going to give me a company car. And my car wasn't doing very well. And I was going to get paid and reduce expenses. So I thought it was going to be a good gig for a couple of years. I've been doing it ever since. So I was a field adjuster for 10 years in the Chicago area, handling first anything that came into my territory, and ultimately I just worked on property claims in northern Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. In 1990, a friend of mine reached out to me, and he said, we've got an opening here in our home office of this large insurance company, and you've got the skill set we're looking for. Would you come in and talk to us? So I ended up working in the home office claims department, handling strictly property claims for the next 4.5 years. And I oversaw 25% of the country for the claims, property claims, anything from a storm door to a burned up high rise. So the other things I did during that time was I was involved in training SIU people, claim people, agents, on how to handle claims. I was also involved, I was the company liaison to the people who drafted new policies and put policy packages together. So I've been involved in that as well. During that time, I was going to law school, and in '94, I started practicing for insurance companies. I was the Thompson Co., those types of people that defended companies, again, doing property insurance claims primarily. In 2001, it just got to the point that I just couldn't stand representing them anymore. Their policies and procedures and attitudes towards the policyholders were something I just couldn't deal with anymore, and I left. Since that time, I moved out to the suburbs, and when I do insurance, I do some other things. I do a lot of construction law as well. I represent policyholders. I represent them in premium audits, I represent them in coverage problems, and I represent them in claims. So I have seen thousands and thousands of claim files, both as an adverse party, as an auditor, and as a participant. And what I'm going to talk about today are things that I've seen and some things I think you guys can do to make your lives easier. All right, what are our goals in the event of loss? Well, this may have been a little misleading because every policy has a section in it called duties in the event of loss or something similar. But as professionals who are representing the policy holders, we also have duties. Okay, one of them is to obtain a fair and reasonable settlement from the insurer following an insured event. Do it promptly, for the least amount of trouble and aggravation. Okay, and in order to do this, you need to know, you guys need to know what the coverage is. And I have seen it over and over and over again where the public adjuster or the contractor or the company insurance rep doesn't know what the coverage is, okay? And they flop around for months arguing or going down the wrong road when they don't know what's insured and what isn't, and how to pay for it if it is damage. Okay? This was touched on yesterday. I'm going to try to not spend too much time on it. If you approach an insurance claim in a less confrontational manner early on, you can get the claims resolved. When I was on the street here in Chicago, there were plenty of public adjusters. Most of the losses that PAs worked on at that time were fires, were significant water losses. Water losses are a huge part of the claims in the Chicago area because of the weather. You could count on them to come in with an estimate that was 2 or 3 times what was reasonable, and hoping that you wouldn't catch all the puff that they packed into it. It created a contentious relationship, and it slowed down claim handling. If you guys can approach these claims with a reasonable estimate, it's going to just what it takes to get the job done, and educate the adjuster as to why you're asking for these things, you can make it easy to get your claim paid. Who are we working with? Well, as was mentioned earlier, we're working with an insured who has little or no idea what's going to happen. Okay, it's your obligation, I think, to explain what you're going to do for them, but don't tell them more than what you can do for them. Okay, none of us can predict the future. If I knew what the future was, I'd be in the desert, I'd be on a beach somewhere in the Caribbean. So they have no idea what's going to happen. Then we have an adjuster, who is your contact or point of representative. And what I have seen in the past 15 to 20 years is a significant deterioration in the training that's given to adjusters about how to be an adjuster. Okay. We get claim files and we see people who don't have any idea what they're doing. Okay, you can help with that. Right? You've seen more roofs than they have, and if you don't go in there in a contentious manner off the bat, you can get these claims settled. They're poorly trained. They're not familiar with the situation. We've talked about people going out to look at their first commercial roof. In a storm situation, they send adjusters to the storm site who've never been there. I remember the first storm I got sent to was in Southern California. That was the first time I ever saw a wood chip roof. We just don't have it around here to speak of, but we did it back in the 80s. Then I got sent to Las Vegas in '88 following an explosion, and that was the first time I saw texture drywall inside a house. Never seen it before. Had no idea how to fix it, how to repair it, what it was. Okay. I spent a couple days figuring out what I was looking at before I could start adjusting claims. So they don't train these people. They don't have the time, they don't have the experience, and it's money. They're poorly trained, they're not very good at interpersonal relationships, they're overworked. Most of them don't understand insurance coverage, especially commercial insurance. Especially commercial insurance, they don't know what they're doing. Policy extensions, everybody's busy looking at the main policy forms, and nobody's looking at mandatory endorsements that often provide additional coverage. They don't know what the exclusions, the limitations are. They know what they are the homeowner, and they think, oh, well, that also applies to this. It doesn't. They don't know how to recognize damage. Sometimes it's they don't want to. Sometimes they just don't know. And most of all, they don't know anything about construction. You know, does anybody know anybody who grew up wanting to be an insurance adjuster? I didn't.
Nope.
Okay. In fact, when I told my dad what I was going to do, he said, "You know, your grandfather did that for a while." I had no idea. He says, "I can't believe you're doing this." So he was a car dealer, and he hated it because of dealing with the body shops. Okay. Another thing that I don't think a lot of you guys understand is the culture inside of a claim office, and I want to give you a little insight on that. Adjusters are socially judged, and sometimes HR judges them on whether they've been made fun of, somebody's pulled the wool over their eyes. They get an attitude of these, we call people like that easy money, okay? And we do that in a derogatory way. Hey, pay a claim, make a friend, right? Stuff like that. Then there's another faction of people who get a sick and sadistic pleasure of denying claims. First company I worked at, we had a guy named Fred who we either called him Freddie Sunshine because he wasn't, or we called him Freddie Denial because that's what he loved to do. Before he became an insurance adjuster, Fred had worked in the military, risen to the rank of captain. And you know what his job was? He's the guy that pushed the button at the bottom of the silo to launch the nuclear missiles. Okay, so this guy had an interesting perspective on life, and if he could figure out a way to deny a claim, he could. Fortunately for our policyholders, when we denied a claim, it had to go through management, and they shut him down. But he worked real hard to deny claims. For insurance adjusters too, the money gets a little weird, okay? When I worked for the large metropolitan insurance company, we wrote enormous checks on commercial buildings, okay? One of the cases I worked on was, it was the glass plant at Ford Motor Company in Dearborn that made all the windshields. It exploded, okay? That cost a lot of money to fix. And it just doesn't become money anymore. It gets weird. I think the way to work with it, when you're working with these people, is try to humanize them. You guys are not paying this claim $20 for these people's lives. Okay, why do you think you have a right to do this? So what we used to say the first thing you have to do when you get a new claim is adjust the policy holder before you adjust the claim. And I think what we need to do is adjust the adjuster before you start adjusting the loss. Non-confronted, non-threatening, work together to resolve the claim. And this was said yesterday, every insurance company I've been associated with says the best claim is a closed claim. They want to close these things, okay? But they don't want to be taken advantage of. make your claim easy to adjust and pay, and will get paid. A friend of mine had a fire a few years ago, a bad fire. And I worked with him, showed him how to put his personal property claim together. It was $349,000 destroyed personal property in his house. Guess how long it took for that claim to get paid? Anybody?
2 months.
3 days. Okay. If you put the claim together in a manner that the insurance company recognizes and they're familiar with, okay, and they can go right down through it, all right, they pay the claims. About 6 months later, I saw him and he's on a new Harley. And I said, Russ, where did you get that Harley? And he said, my closet. Okay, duties in the event of a loss. This is what I think Sean wanted me to talk about, but this is what it says in the policy. Every single insurance policy there is has a clause in it, or instructions and requirements for the policy. You need to know what it is. Okay, the current version of these things originated in the 1943 New York Standard Fire Policy. Is anybody familiar with that? Okay. In Illinois, that is still the standard by which insurance policies are measured by the insurance department. If your policy doesn't provide coverage equal to or greater than that in any area, it reverts back to the coverage provided there. Okay, these policies, they have different nomenclature, but it's the same thing. Duties after loss, these are all in the conditions section of a property policy. Duties after loss, that's what's in the ISO homeowners form. Duties in the event of loss or damage, that's in the ISO commercial. What you must do in case of loss, American Family. Your duties after loss, homeowners, State Farm. Requirements in case of loss, that's in the National Flood Insurance Policy. Don't assume that all policies from the same carrier are the same. They are not. If you are licensed or operate in multiple jurisdictions, the policy that you see here is going to be different than the policy you see in a different state. Okay, because the contents of the policies are governed by state law, and you need to know what the coverage is. People have mentioned, ask for a certified copy of the policy, do it, or you don't know what you're doing, and you can end up going down a rabbit hole. Okay, I think one of your duties is to know what the policy provides and what the policy requires. If you don't know, find out. Don't realize the policy that you have from the same insurer, which is in your files from the loss that occurred 2 years ago. They are updated constantly and they change. ISO updates policies every year. Maybe not every form, but they're doing it all the time. Does everybody know who ISO is?
Yep.
Okay.
Insurance Service Office.
State Farm updates less often, but the policies vary from state to state. You step back here for ISO policies for a minute. ISO policies are predominantly national policies. It's one policy form they issue that's used all over the country. In the case of that, your policy is going to have a state-specific mandatory endorsement that's attached to it that can wildly change the policy terms contained within the policy. If you don't find out what that is, you can make a bad mistake. Like wait too long to file suit, wait too long to file a proof of loss. You have to know what you're dealing with. This is what the ISO homeowners policy says. Interestingly enough, this one says there's a requirement for prejudice. Okay? That's not true in all states or other policies. In Illinois, all they have to show is you didn't comply, not that there's been prejudice. Okay? If the failure is prejudicial, then it's got to be performed either by you, meaning the insured, or another person who qualifies as an insured, or a representative, and that's your guys. Okay? And if it doesn't get done, the insurer's going to say they're prejudiced. They always do. Why? Because that's what your attorneys teach them to say. How do I know? I used to do it. Okay? Duties in the event of loss. Okay, this is the commercial. Interestingly enough, big, far more complicated policy, far fewer requirements. This is NFIP, says in case of a flood loss, you must. They're not quite as nice. State Farm, you must cooperate with us, okay, in the investigation and see that the following duties are performed. Some insurance companies, adjusters who don't know the coverage say the insured has to do this. No, they must see that it's done. They don't have to do it. Okay, you got to know what the policy says. In the event of, I should say event, I did that so you guys could proofread, just proofread this one. In the event of a loss, blah, 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 you and any other person must. Okay, it's American Family. A lot of their claims seem to wind up on my desk. I'm not saying that. I could, but I'm not going to. The insured probably doesn't know what to do and doesn't want to do it even if they knew what to do. If you want the claim to get paid, you're going to have to do these things. Okay? And if you want to get paid, it's got to get done. Because all the money comes from the insurance company. Number one, you have to give prompt notice to us or our agent. Some of them have online sites you do it, some of them calls phone, some of them have to call the agent. Okay? If you do it by telephone, send a confirming email. Right? Who has one of these? Cell phone? Takes pictures, does email, does a text. Okay, you've got everything you need. If you're uncomfortable with doing it on your phone, invest in Dragon. Okay, I use it on my computer. I absolutely love it. It comes with a free thing called Dragon Anywhere that goes on your phone. You can dictate emails, letters, anything you want while you're driving down the road, and it does a very nice job. So if you have a conversation with an adjuster, an insurance agent, somebody else, confirm it. Okay, they have a different narrative that they're trying to sell in their claim files. Okay, do it at that time. Don't wait 6 months, because then it looks like you're making something up to cover a hole. Bob, following up our conversation today, you agreed that you would have your the agreed scope to us by X date, that type of thing. We've got a case we're working on right now where the adjuster told me, the insurance company told me if we did X, they'd pay the claim, and then they didn't pay the claim. Oh, well, that should be pretty easy. Okay. So I looked through all the claim file materials, pulled them up. I said, where's that email from the adjuster? Oh, no, that was just a phone call. You didn't confirm it? No. Okay. He said, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. Phone calls don't count. Okay. If you call the insurance company, they're going to write it down. And they're going to tell a different story. Document your file. Tina's group has the most documented PA files I have ever seen in my life. I have never seen anything like what they do. It is phenomenal. Okay? I mean, I've seen them all over the country. They are the standard by which others are measured. Okay? So, pay her to find out what she's doing. Is that what you wanted? Yeah. Then you have to protect the property from further damage. Those who are reading this sharply will miss it. See the 2 and 3 aren't here. Those relate to theft claims. We're not talking about those. Okay. Make reasonable and necessary repairs and keep an accurate record. Okay. If you don't have an adjuster assigned and the roof needs to be tarred, talk to the agent. Okay. Dear Sam, just confirming on behalf of 37's insurance company, you told me to go ahead and tarp the roof. I'm going to take care of it. Okay, confirm this stuff. Because the adjuster will say, "Oh, we didn't tell you to do that." If it isn't in writing, it didn't happen. Confirm everything. Confirm. I just called confirm. We couldn't meet today. We agreed to meet next Tuesday. Show the narrative. Okay. Adjusters are usually all overworked. They're overwhelmed. They're being asked to make decisions they're not equipped to make, okay, or they're uncomfortable. If you put too much pressure on them, they start ghosting you, or they'll deny that the conversation or event took place. Send them an email. It's easier for them to document their file, okay? Document the good, the bad, and the ugly, but document it. If it isn't in writing, it didn't happen. Okay, what else do you have? You have to cooperate with the insurance company. What's cooperation mean? Well, it depends. There's no simple answer. Generally speaking, okay, reasonable cooperation is based on the circumstances that exist at the time the cooperation is requested. Okay, if there is a concern about the damage to a roof and the insurance company is asking for 3 years of tax returns and bank statements, why? Is that reasonable under the circumstances?
No.
Okay, do you have to do that? I would not simply refuse, but I would say, why do you want these? Okay, there's no financial issues that we know of. Okay, then you have to prepare an inventory of damaged personal property. The job I hated the most here was an adjustment. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, again, don't get crazy here. An ISO policy does not require the insured to exhibit the damaged and undamaged property. Many policies do. So be sure you know what you have to do. If that's the case, confirm in writing that the claim rep has seen everything and you can start the disposal process. State Farm also says that a policyholder has to, quote, give statements. Okay, how many statements does that mean? And to whom and how often? Again, it's a question of what's reasonable. Duties in the event of loss, sent to us within 60 days after our request, your signed sworn proof of loss. A lot of disagreement about this. If the insurance company asks for it, you have to send it. Okay, if you don't, the claim will be denied, and I don't think I'm going to be able to help you or your policyholder. But here's what we recommend to many people in the claims we deal with. Send a proof of loss even if it's not requested. Why? It starts triggering a countdown for payment. Okay. Secondly, it tolls the lawsuit. Okay. Most policies today say if you're going to file a lawsuit, you have to do it within 1 year or 2 years of the date of loss. But it's tolled while they're holding the proof of loss. So that can be extended. If they reject it, that's fine, but get the proof of loss into them. It'll push them to get the claim settled. Okay, don't argue with them. If you send in your proof of loss and they reject it, you know where you are. You're not going to get them to change their mind because at that point it's gone through 2 or 3 levels of supervisors. Okay, and they're not going to change their minds. Okay, they can't lose too much face. All right? They'll start being called easy money. If you get a letter from the insurance company saying the insured has to show up for examination under oath, call the insurance company and ask them why. Second of all, call an attorney. It's time to get the attorney involved. You had a question.
Can you think of any occasion where it would be a disadvantage to your client to send in a proof of loss?
No. What's the source of the loss? Well, I think that the question is, somebody's got a room they don't use in the house. Okay, they haven't been in there in 3 or 4 months or more. One day they go into that room and there's a big water stain on the ceiling. They discover water damage, they're staining in the walls, blah, 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 blah. What do you put down for a date of loss? The date of discovery, or do you try to relate it back to a windstorm? If you're going to go with the date of discovery, that's what you want to indicate. This is date of loss, in parentheses, date of discovery. Okay? Now, one of the things they say, you gotta know what the policy says. Some policies say, if the water's been leaking for a period of 14 days or more, he ain't paying this. Okay? I'm not telling anybody to lie. Okay? But don't walk into an exclusion. Right? Don't walk into an exclusion if you don't have to, because it's tough to back your way out of it. Other questions, Clyde? I'm gonna wrap up here shortly. I've only got 14 more slides. What's the case law say? The duties, universally held here in the Midwest, duties are more than a cooperation clause, which only requires reasonable assistance. These are policy terms, and you must perform the specific duties. Okay, you must. Or the claim can be denied.
Breach of contract.
Sean might be able to get you out of that then. I might. The insurer can waive these, okay? Do you want to come out and inspect this roof? No, I don't need to, just go ahead and fix it. Send an email. They've waived their right to inspect, okay? No, go ahead and replace it. Confirm it with an email. They've waived their right, okay? Do you need X? No, I don't. Confirm that in an email. They may be running and not put it in the file. You need to put it in the file. Okay? The case from Illinois says the plaintiff did not file a proof of loss, but the insurer knew enough about the loss that there was really no need to do it, and he may have waived it. That issue was not taken up by the court. It was sent back down to the trial court for determination. Yes, sir.
Real quick on those emails, if you don't get a response, that's still okay. That's them accepting it, so don't always look for a response from them.
By your refusal, that is your acceptance.
Yeah, if they don't respond and you think there's Bob, I sent you an email on Tuesday. I didn't hear back
I
from
don't
you.
need that. Once I send it, I can boom, I'm done.
Okay. If it's a really critical thing, all right, and it's a lot of money involved, I might do that. A lot of people start ghosting in this business and all. It's common in society now. And if someone starts ghosting you, I sent you an email, I didn't hear from you. If we don't hear from you by Tuesday, we're going to presume that what we propose is okay with you. All right? Take care of it yourself. But I wouldn't just leave it open. If you haven't filed a proof and they deny the claim, universally they've waived the right or waived the requirement to file a proof of loss. The research and my experiences as an attorney are primarily in the upper Midwest. Okay, you guys are from all over. Some of you are in shorts. We don't wear shorts today. I mean, it's okay, but we don't do that. Some of you say y'all, which we don't hear a lot around here, and that's fine. When you get home, okay, when you get home, say this idiot from Chicago said we got to do X, Y, and Z. What's the law here? Talk to your attorney. If you don't have an attorney on speed dial, get one. Okay? Make it a two-way street. You can provide him with information, she can provide you with information. Okay? Get a team. All right? I got a roofer I can call, I got a plumber I can call, I got an electrician I can call, I got contractors I can call. I got all kinds of clients, okay, and friends that I've kept over the years. I need information about something, I call them. And I buy lunch sometime. But, okay, make a team. You can't do this yourself. You can't know enough to do this all yourself. We talked about the tolling provision. Here's what the policy says in the insurer's obligations, okay? We will pay for covered loss and damage 30 days after we receive the proof of loss, and there's been the filing of an appraisal award or we reach an agreement, okay? But once you do that, and there's an agreement, even on a partial loss, they have to pay you within 30 days. If they don't, that's subtraction to start twisting their arm. Okay, get that proof of loss in. It doesn't say the proof of loss we requested. It says proof of loss. Summary, we've talked, this has been that long. The insured doesn't know what they're doing, okay? The policy identifies who they are, but you have to help them, okay? Our job, I think you have duties under the law of your state, okay? To be, once you agree to represent them as a policy holder, representative, PA or otherwise, you have a duty to help them get paid fairly and promptly. Don't get in the way of that happening. The biggest fights I've seen in claim files result from the insured or the insurer's representative and the policy holder getting it. They don't like each other, okay, and it spills over into the claim. Try not to let that happen. These adjusters, many of them are jerks, okay, but do not try and keep that from screwing things up for your client, okay, and keep you from getting paid. All right, thank you. Questions? Yes?
All right, is the text message as powerful as an email, back and forth?
It can be as powerful, but it's harder to find, it's harder to prove. It's harder from an evidentiary standpoint, okay, because you have to go back and find it on your phone, and you may have a new phone, whereas emails tend to stick.
But if you do find it, you got a record, you got a record.
It's better than nothing. Yeah, it's better than nothing, but I prefer an email, and I think every attorney here would prefer an email, strong prefer. Yes?
Most of the proof of loss that I've received usually come from the insurance company, and they put their own numbers out there.
Uh-huh. You don't have to sign it,
Okay,
all right? If you, or you say under dispute,
exactly.
okay? If they're telling you they think the damage is 30 grand and you think it's 40, if you sign a proof of loss saying it's 30, guess how much it is?
That's right.
It's 30. Okay. Questions? All right, thank you very much. Derek, I'm going to let you fix this machine.
Our next speaker is going to be Kevin Anderson.
Mike's not on.
Hey guys, our next speaker is going to be Kevin Vanders. He's going to be talking about OSHA. Extremely important for us and our business models, getting our clients properly paid, as well as protecting ourselves.
Everybody can hear me?
Yep.
How many here have actually ever heard me speak before in the past? So most of you know I actually don't need this microphone, so if I get a little too loud, just tell me to calm down. My name is Kevin Dandridge. I am the owner of One Life Safety. I do OSHA. I do safety regulations. I do protocols. I walk your jobs, make sure that everything that you're looking for to add into your claim safety-wise is there and required. So let me ask this. How many of you know that OSHA actually, all the safety is required and is payable by the insurance company? Got 2, 3, 4, Cal. OSHA is a regulation, it's a law that is required on every job site and everywhere in this country. Okay, it is not just regulated to industrial or commercial. I get a lot of people, well, they always say that safety, OSHA is not required on residential. The standard is the 1926 construction standard for safety. Construction. Not residential construction, not industrial, not commercial, it's construction. What I want to talk about today is I normally go over all the regulations, how to look at a claim, but I want to go over more of how are you putting it in your claim? Because the arguments I get all the time, I get tons of phone calls. Oh, they're denying. I got one this week from Chicago. I walked a job a week and a half ago. The guy put the claim in on Monday, Tuesday immediately. The answer is, oh no, that's what the roofer's required to do. It's in his bid, right? How many of you have that already brought up? Let me go back, let me step back. How many are putting safety in your claims? Okay? So, how many times are you hearing, it's in the exact domain? Okay, it's in the white papers, it's in the description. Why is safety not in exact domain? Exact domain is a plug and play item, correct? I've got this roof tile, I got this many squares, this is how long it's gonna take, blah, blah, blah. Like, why is safety not in there? Why is the only thing for safety in there fall protection? Fall protection is the only line item in exact domain that you can go in there and plug and play. Click. It's a rental fee for what, $8.26 a day? Why is that?
Because it's cheap.
Because it's cheap? I'll tell you exactly why it is. Steve Shannon, who was an instructor for Xactimate, sat down in a class and said, this is how you add a line item for safety, and it stayed. But if you look at the white paper on fall protection, it's $8.26 a day. It's for a harness and a lanyard, but not the connection point, not the tie-off point. Why is that? Because there's many different types of tie-off points, right? There's ones that go on the roof, D-rings, dangles, permanents, stanchions, and those all cost different prices. Why is it that something that's a law that protects the American worker, not in something that is required by law to be in a claim? Okay, it's not law and ordinance. It doesn't change. When I got into OSHA 20 years ago, so I'm an OSHA 500 instructor, okay? When I got into OSHA, the book was 2 inches thick. How thick is the book now?
3.
Huh?
3.
1.5 inches. You know why it's 1.5 inches? Why did it go down? We took all the gray out of it. We fought to get the gray taken out. Could be, should be, would be, maybe, kind of. No, it's this or it's that. Okay? When I do a protocol, when I do a manual for a job site, because OSHA requires that every job site has a safety protocol on it. Whether it's just a small 1,500 square foot house for a roof, or building this tower. You have to have a job site specific protocol for that site. When I put something together, I send it to my client, okay, my public adjuster. If they take that line, that manual, and the cost that I've put with that manual, and put safety, $285,000. Is that arguable? Can they throw that out? They sure can. Why? Because I put things in there that you may have already put in your plan. A SkyTrack, porta-johns, right? Scaffolding. You have to break it down. You have to be able to say, how long is that job going to be? Just like you do with a roof, with a building. You say it's going to be 15 weeks, right? So you get a cost for 15 weeks. You got to break all those items down. That's why I give you a spreadsheet instead of a final number. When they come back and say, well, it's required on the job, It has to be done. Yes, it does. Oh, it's part of O&P. No, it's not. Well, kind of. It is overhead. But it is overhead that costs. Insurance company paid for trash bags, right? I'm gonna do a demo, I get trash bags, you put a case of trash bags on them, and they pay for it. Well, why isn't hard hats part of that? Glasses, gloves, respirators, Tyvek suits, they're all disposable items. Let me ask you this. If I give you a hard hat, right, you work for me for a week and a half, you quit, can I take that hard hat and give it to you? Would you take that hard hat? No, that's 16 bucks out the door. You're working on a 2-story roof, and yes, you are required to wear a hard hat on the roof. It's not because of the overhead damage that can happen. You obviously are on the roof. But it's from when he turns around with the drip edge and smacks you in the head with it. Okay? That's from when that one line that does snap hits him in the head. But you bend over, your hard hat falls off and hits the ground. Is that hard hat good anymore? No, it's had an impact. It's gone. 16 bucks. Let's get into that harness thing. The harness will be the big argument, especially for most of your roofers, most of your claims, because harnesses get used a lot. It's not just for a roof. You know, when you get in a scissor lift, you have to have a harness. You get in a boom lift, you have to have a harness. Working on a live edge, you have to have a harness. You can be on a flat roof on a live edge, and you need to have a harness. Okay, but how long does that harness last? And it doesn't matter whether it's roofer in a bucket at $100, or it's the $300 harness that fits the fat kid up here. Okay, they have to be inspected every day. And every day they got paint on them, they got thrown down in moon dust and silt, grease, roof tar, gas. They're done. Are you willing to take that chance? Can't use them. So when they say, oh, you can go from roof to roof to roof, yes, I can. I can go from this residential roof, Texas. I love Texas. I went to school actually in Arnold. So, anyway, you can have a hailstorm that comes through, and you get a roof and a roof. I mean, yours going right down the street, right? But by that third or fourth roof, that harness is done, especially in asphalt shingles. Okay, they're dragging along, they're leaning down, they scrape, they scratch, they're done. That's why there's a rental charge. Okay, there's a rental charge for DUs. It's kind of based on the same thing. If I put DUs in a building, and that DUs are there, it's supposed to be a week, it turns into 2 weeks, turns into 3 weeks, turns into 4 weeks, they'll come back and say, I'm not going to pay a daily rental, I'm not going to pay a weekly rental, I'm going to pay a monthly rental. Harnesses are the same way. They'll come back and say, well, hey, that harness is only $100. At $100, at 10 days, we're going to cap that and we'll buy you a new harness. Okay. I've got roofing claims, or I've got jobs out there right now, 25-week roofing jobs. Okay. I had a claim in Tennessee. The building was 25 acres. Think about that, 25 acres. This was a building that was started out at this size, and they added on, and they added on, and they added on, and they added on over the years. Well, when it was actually a hurricane that had come through, and there was a remnants of the hurricane that came up. Don't ask me which one it was, I can't remember. By the time it got there, it tore up the roofs because they're all sectioned together. It had AC units all over the place because it's a manufacturing plant. And we had to bring helicopters in to lift the units off because we can't get a crane out there big enough to reach the center of the building. So when you're looking at a claim, how am I going to get all these units off? I don't know. $5,000 an hour for a helicopter to come lift units? That's an argument point. That's a safety point. Can't get a crane big enough in there to reach over the building. But you know, every time you do something like that with a helicopter or a big crane, you can't have people in the building. So I got business interruption. I'm not telling you how to do all of your claims, I'm telling you on the safety part, but these are things that you have to look at and how to be able to argument and discuss that. The other part of that I want to bring up is, as we learn, and I'm going to try to actually change my little tone here. Okay, I'm not a public adjuster. But I took Cal's class this week, Cal and Mel's and Sean's class this week. I took a boot camp class. I wanted to understand what all my public adjusters are actually looking at and how they're working their claims. Okay, because I've worked with a lot of public adjusters. I've seen a lot of different aspects, a lot of different angles. That is the best class I've ever seen. And I'm not saying that because they're sitting here. I'm saying it because they are showing you the way to do it every time to make it right. To go step 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. The reason I respect that is I'm in safety. I make sure that we do step 1 before we do step 4. Because if I do step 4 on a tie-off on a roof, before I do step 1, which is the training of how to put it all together, 4 doesn't matter. I got a company out of a fatality a year and a half ago where the guy died in his harness with his lanyard hooked to him. We did step 1, we trained him. We did step 2, we supplied him. Step 3 was his, tie off. Actually tie off. He didn't do step 3. Is that on the company or is that on the individual?
Individual, because you did step 1 and 2.
It's definitely on the individual, and that's what we went with when we went in and argued with OSHA. And we got a couple violations on that job for a couple other little things, but we didn't get a fatality where OSHA will sue you. They will file criminal negligence against you on a fatality. So let's bring that up. When you're looking at safety, when I look at safety on these claims, okay, I don't look at safety just as the worker that's on the job. 90% of the jobs that I go to are active buildings. What I mean by an active building, it's a shopping center, it's a house, it's a manufacturing plant, and there are people inside it, walking out of it, they're around it all day long that have nothing to do with the actual work on the building. Okay, so I have to look at not only taking care of the worker that's on that job, I got to look at the people that are working in that building, coming in and out, the patrons that are going to the shopping center. What am I doing for them? Am I putting scaffolding walkways in at all the doorways so that when they walk out or walk in, nothing falls and hits them? Yes. Am I required to do that on a construction site alone? Not always. Why? It's a construction site. It's fenced off. Everybody knows their duties. Everybody's wearing PPE. But Karen, who's running late to start and has to hit her Starbucks, is not wearing a hard hat when she goes running in and comes running out and tells everybody, you're in my way. Okay? How many job sites I've been on where we put barricades up, put walkways up for scaffolding down the street, and had people literally walk right through the barricade? Oh, I didn't realize. But the guy standing there right next to you said, hey, don't go through there, go through here. Wasn't good enough for you? This happens every day. So I have to look at that. I have to make sure that I'm not only protecting the people that are around the building, but I'm also protecting the workers. What you need to be looking at is not just that, but who are you honestly protecting? Who's the main person you're protecting? The insured. The insured. Plain and simple. There are cases out there where a contractor, this is my contractors in here. Anybody a contractor in here? Okay, my contractors in here. There are cases out there where you're the GC, you've hired a sub. Who's hired a sub, who's hired a sub, who's actually hired a sub, who's hired Bob. Say Bob. Bob. Bob takes a ladder, leans it against a wall, a round pillar like that. Ladder falls, and he takes this finger and he shoves it through his wrist. Now, if you've been with me before in my classes or my teachings, back in the day, I used to show those pictures. Fingers through wrists, arms cut off. That's the stuff I like, stuff I do. All right, we're going to go that route. You see me on fiction hitting the pictures. I don't know what's actually up there. All right, but Bob sues his boss, and his boss says, I don't have workers' comp, right? I'm a Texas contractor. How do you know license? Right? I don't have workers' comp. So Bob goes and hires a lawyer. Lawyer says, we're going to sue your boss, and we're going to sue the contractor that hired him, the contractor that hired him, the contractor that hired him. Oh, and by the way, we're going to sue the owner of the building. Why? Because we're a litigious society, they will sue everybody. And they will sue all the way up. Will they get money from all of them? No, but they'll sue them. The owner of the building is your insured. Okay? Your insured is the one that's gonna end up possibly losing money. Your insured, and this is your fight against your insurance company, is going to be the one, that insurance company that your insurance is gonna turn to and go, got another claim, and they're gonna go fight that one. Now that claim they'll actually fight. They'll fight against you for all that safety and all that pile and all that, everything else, right? But that one they'll settle. Sorry, I said fight. They'll actually settle that one because they don't want somebody saying somebody got hurt and they didn't take Channel 3 News, as we call it in Arizona. You know, consumer. That's your argument. I'm trying to keep you, Mr. Insure Company, out of another lawsuit, because that's what's going to happen if somebody gets hurt on this job. And as Chip said yesterday, by accepting a claim that has no safety in it, you've already automatically said you're breaking the law, because OSHA's a law, right? Who's my safety guys there? There's a couple safety guys that are actually in class. Here, there he is. You know, if he or you tell somebody to do something unsafe, it's 5 minutes worth of work, guys. Just jump up there real quick without arms. You're liable. You got an OSHA 30 card, you're gonna be a safety manager. Okay? Your safety manager, you tell him to climb up there, he falls off that roof. Guess who's going to jail? You are. So when I write my protocols, I'm very diligent about what I put in there. How I put it in. How I'm gonna argue that. Why? Because if I write something for you, and it goes out there, you follow it to the letter, and somebody dies, you know where they're coming? Right here. I gotta argue that. And I gotta tell my wife and my daughter who are sitting back in the back, Dad's going to prison for a while. I don't want to do that. I don't want you to do that. Make sure that you're putting your claims together properly. Make sure that you're looking at everything. Who's working Florida right now? Okay? So John Pruitt, I don't think he's in yet. There he is. Just walk in. John Pruitt reached out the other day on social media. Said, hey, I hear about this guy named Kevin Dandridge. Right? We've never worked together. Everybody who I work with jumps on social media. Yeah, that's your guy, go again. We sat down and talked. Guess where I'm headed next week? Going to Florida. Going to go look at 4 of his claims. Claims that are undermined from the storm. Big buildings, big, resorts and condo complexes. Why am I jumping out there tomorrow or next week? Because he showed me those pictures. I went, keep your guys out of that job. It's not safe. You know how many times I've been called out to a job, a fire, earthquake, where I walked up and said, get everybody out of this building. It's not safe. Everybody's in there jumping around, looking at everything. It's a fire. It's got carcinogens everywhere. Nobody's wearing a mask. Nobody's got eye protection on. Hell, half of them are wearing shorts and tennis shoes. Nails sticking up everywhere. How you walk your claim is how you represent yourself, who is now the representative of the insured, correct? You signed that contract. I tell owners of construction companies that I run safety for. Every time you show up on the job, and you're not wearing a hard hat, you're wearing shorts and tennis shoes, and I'm out there screaming, put your vest on, put your hard hat on, put your pants on. Long pants, sorry, not running around in underwear. Okay, put your long pants on, put your boots on, and you show up looking like this. Why? The owner does it. I can do it, right? It all filters downhill. Which way does shit roll? Downhill. Make sure that you're represented properly. Make sure that you're making that argument. Make sure that you're putting it in the claim so it's not arguable. If you're putting it in there as O&P, they're going to argue that. We don't pay O&P. That's right, you don't pay O&P. It's why you pay every line item for safety that I put in. If you ever have a question, now a lot of you got my card, information's right there, reach out. I got no problem asking. You can ask Cal, you can ask Jack, you can ask Chris. They've called me, hey man, I'm standing here, what do I do? What would you do here? I give you the information. Why? I want to make sure that that information's out there, that you're teaching your people how to do it. That's what we're here for. That's what you're here for. That's why we're here today. How do we do it right, and how do we teach it right? Right, Steve? Steve does this every day. Teaches every day. If you are not teaching somebody something every day, and I'm not talking preaching, I'm talking showing somebody how to do something when they ask, to do it properly. You're not doing it right. We're in this business. And as Cal has said, as many have said today, we're here to mend the fracture. We're here to make sure that we get everything the way it's supposed to be. Okay, this is a battle. It's not a battle for you. It's a battle for your client. Okay, I've been a client. I know the hell that goes through it. Okay, most of us have been a client at one point. Why we're here, how we got it started. All my IAs that became PAs, you got tired of that. You gotta make sure you're teaching every day, handing that information on. Okay, if you're not doing that, relook at what's going on. Are you actually not involved? Are you not paying attention? Or are you just not caring? When I'm safety, I care. Why? Who gets to go tell somebody that their husband, their wife, their son and daughter's not coming home? I do. I get that call. I like making sure that I don't have to do that because I make sure when I walk on the job, I handle it right. Now, I don't have anybody in here that's actually worked with me in construction. But I will tell you, everybody I've worked with in construction will tell you I am not the safety Nazi. I don't come out and scream. I don't yell. I don't fret. Most of my guys like me, honestly. And I'm safety. Usually the most hated guy on a job site. Yeah, Oaks is here. Oh shit, the orange hat showed up. Everybody go have a 30-hour lunch. Okay? But I will tell you, I've had cases, and my wife will tell you, we used to work for the same company. The head of service, when I first started with the company, came out. Stay off my jobs. I'm doing this shit 20 years, man. I say that because he's Hispanic, he's about that big. Yeah, he's like, stay off my job. I've been doing this shit. You don't come near my stuff. When I quit that company 8 years later and started my own firm, that man, she'll verify, sat and cried and hugged me. Man, we bros. You can't be leaving me, man. You take care of this stuff. Okay? It's because I go out there and I work with them. My guys know I come from the field. I've got 30 years of construction, 20 years of safety. All right? I know how it goes together. I know what it means to be out there in August in 112 degrees, 90% humidity, trying to figure out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon how to get that beam in that place. So I don't have to come to work on Saturday. I know what it means. I know what it takes. And I try to make sure I look at that in my safety processes. I write safety processes for guys to take breaks every 20 minutes in Arizona when it's too hot and we're wearing Tyvek suits. Your carrier say, well, you're trying to expand the time. No, I'm trying not to kill somebody. That's my main thing. I'm not trying to expand time. And I know there's a couple adjusters here that I've worked with that I've gone to and said, you got too much money in this one. You don't need this, you don't need that. We're gonna attack it this way. Because I'm not here to make a profit. I'm here to do it right, get you the right cost, and get the guys to go home every day to kiss whoever they kiss when they go home. Okay? That's it. How am I doing on time, Derek? Am I great? Am I too long?
Question.
Hold on 1 second. Running two separate types of evaluations, maybe perhaps one that is their own contracting company that doesn't have the OSHA regulations in it, and then perhaps one that they may write for the insurance company that does have the OSHA regulations. How would that be viewed? You understand what I'm saying?
Kind of.
But what I'm getting at is, does OSHA apply no matter what?
OSHA applies no matter what. When I started this off, I said, honestly, guys, remember, it's the construction standard. It's not the residential standard, it's not the, I will say back in the day, when I first started, you had residential and a commercial sections, like fall protection. Commercial was 10, residential was 6. We changed all that. We came back and said, no, fall is 6 foot. Fall is fall. Okay? You can fall 3 foot and die. Seen it happen. Okay, guy steps over a trench, slips, falls back, snaps the neck, 3 foot fall, that was it, dead. I've seen guys fall off 3-story buildings and bounce and get up and walk away with the limb. Okay, when God decides you're coming home, you're coming home. When you put a claim together that has safety in it and put a claim together that doesn't have safety in it, you don't think that the insurance company, State Farm, Allstate, whoever, is not going to go, I remember that guy. Let me pull his last claim up. Oh, he didn't put safety in that one. Why is it in this one? Why is this one only got half the safety in it? They're going to pull that stuff up. As we've said in boot camp, you're putting the target on your back by doing it right. That's the target, and they're going to look for it. Okay? I have had people, I've had adjusters, I've had appraisers, I've had umpires go, I have seen 5 of your reports, and they all look the same. You're damn right they look the same, because they're done right. Okay? Every one of them is done right. Every report looks right. I don't change it up, change the colors, change the format, right? I don't change the font, just to make it look different so you feel like you're getting something better for your money that you're spending. No, I'm giving you what's right. Okay, I developed my program over years to make sure it's right. You go to the same engineer, right? Does his report always look the same? I'm not saying say the same thing. I'm saying does it look the same format, the same style? Pictures are always about page 5. Do you tell them to change it up? Because they're saying it looks the same. Hell no, you don't. You produce the report. That answer your question, Cal? Okay. I usually get around beating the question too much. You had a question?
Just as a public adjuster, and it probably wouldn't even be directed to you, but if, as a public adjuster, if we don't put these requirements on our estimates and something does happen, you know, I would probably imagine there's got to be some kind of liability on us as well. You're putting it up.
So I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to step in that lane. I'll learn to stay in my lane. But I am going to say this. Like I said earlier, I have seen where somebody's gotten hurt and they do start going up the ladder. If you're in that, if you're wrong in that ladder, yeah, you probably have a chance. A damn good chance they're going to come after you. Yes.
Kind of what he was saying. So do you, because you're not a PA, do you carry financial backing on?
No, because I'm a consultant.
Correct. So you lay out your SOP to the builder, the contractor, or the PA, or whoever your contractor with. You just lay out what's right, looks like, and that's the game plan. Now, if anything would happen on the manufacturing side or whatnot, that's on the insured or the person. So you're out. You just write the plan.
Correct. I'm out in the fact that, yeah, like I said, unless I write something that actually causes injury, I say you can work without arc flash blankets with this light electrical by the roof. No, we don't have to do that. And somebody gets cooked, yeah, then they can come after me. But if I put arc flash blankets and you put arc flash blankets in your claim, and the insurance company comes back and says, well, you don't have to do arc flash blankets, you can just turn the power off and do a lockout tag out. And you say, okay, fine, and you take it out. But you don't follow through, or your contractor doesn't follow through and lock and tag it out. Yeah, that's a point where they can probably, they'll come at you and go, well, why'd you take it out? Well, because he said we lock it. I didn't say that. Just like, I'm sorry, Sean? No. Ron. Got an N in there somewhere. Somewhere. Like Ron said, you know, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. Okay, if you don't prove it or you pull it out, it's on you. Safety's not a negotiating tool. When I first got in this business and started teaching my OSHA 10 classes, that's where Cal and I and Mel met. Okay, People were literally taking the screenshots. Why I don't put it up there. I don't put up my reports. I don't put exact links up there. I don't do exact links, but people that would put it in, I would show it. That's how you put it in. I don't put it in. I had a claim show up where somebody said, well, you wrote this up and all this safety got put in there and we need to discuss it. And I went, okay, I don't remember doing anything with that claim, but send me what you got. And it was literally his exact main report with a screenshot of a picture that I put up there on the screen in Florida. I went, dude, that's got for brick in it. This guy doesn't even have brick on it. That's a screenshot from my Florida class. I have nothing to do with this claim. So, again, making sure you do it right. And if you don't know how to do it right, ask. Call me. Be more than happy to walk you through it. Okay? You're not going to put me on every claim. I know that. I'm not asking you to do it. What I'm asking you is every time you call me, every other week and ask questions, when you get that claim that deserves a full safety protocol, you call me. I'll come out and do it for you. Any other questions? No? All right. If you have any questions later, because they always pop up, or you just want me to talk to you, come see me. I'm more than happy to help out. Thank you.
He's a good speaker. Oh yeah, he's baritone. Yeah. There's no ums and he knew exactly what to say the whole time. Almost like he's done this before.
Thank you, Kevin, that was excellent.
This look good.
Our next speaker is going to be Attorney Candace Colucci. Candace Colucci. And get her set up here. Then we'll have Jack and Chris coming up for part 2, and then we'll be on to lunch.
Register? See, I can't fall asleep. I can't have a lot of food in my stomach. So I was up for a little bit. Do you guys want to have deep? Yeah, you gotta get a glass. Deep enough. And my knees. You gotta feel it to the brim. Right? It kept draining on me, the emergency drain thing. Did you shut it? Yeah. Well, you know the thing at the top. Yeah, but I guess I know what you're saying. But when you shut it, it slows the drain. Did you leave it open? Oh, I guess I didn't know. Yeah. Every time I find a deep tub. But see, I like doing both. I was thinking about just to sit there and then take a shower. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. You got to. Well, some people don't. Some people do the shower, then the shower. I could see that because you don't want to get off. Yeah. The dirt off first. Yeah.
I don't think so.
I might try that tonight. So, you go crazy. What time do you fly next? We still got the same flight. We should. I don't think you changed, did you?
Hello. Okay. I will start. I know people are grabbing drinks, so I'll go ahead and introduce myself. So I am attorney Candace Colucci, and I own the firm, the managing attorney at the Colucci Law Group. We have offices in Florida, Louisiana, and Texas. And we are policyholder attorneys, advocates. I'm sure you guys are very aware of what that means. And so a little bit about me. I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I am a country girl and grew up in the city. So I am from Stetson, so we're the #1 trial litigation team, so trial is my thing. I love to litigate. And I have a couple of awards there that I've won. And so this is what we do every day, all day. We specialize in this. So I'm sure you guys are very, very aware. Okay, Tobias in the back cheering. Tobias, love you. Okay, so Cal and Melanie and Sean asked me to speak, and what they asked me to speak about was, what does it mean to mend the fracture? So to not come up here and talk about being an attorney or the law or your post-loss obligations or the appraisal, which is usually things that we talk about, is to actually talk about the idea of what I believe as an attorney, the mending the fracture means and why you guys are at an event like this and what PPA stands for. I am such an advocate of that. Because at the end of the day, we have to start by recognizing that we are at war. Like, if you don't understand that right now, the way the insurance industry is, that the insurance companies are absolutely working together in every single state against the insureds, contractors, appraisers, and attorneys. And if we don't recognize that, then we have no chance at all. So, some of the things that I always say is a divided military has already lost the war, and that is exactly where we're at. We are interfighting so much between each other, competing when there's no reason to compete. And Cal said it absolutely right. We all kind of talk about this and we say, even if everybody we knew all got into this industry, there would never be enough people representing the insured. So why haven't we come together to share information, to share knowledge, and to not step on each other's toes? And that's really where we are. And what you'll see a lot in this industry, unfortunately, is a lot of people stepping on each other to rise. That is not how you get to success the right way at all, especially in an industry like this, where we can't compete. We have to work together. So we have to have that kind of united front against the insurance company. So my motto and why I created my own firm, the reason why I didn't go to work for a firm that was already doing this when I fell into this industry was that I had a mission statement, and my mission statement was to put people over profits. It is what everybody in my firm knows and understands, and when we have that as our mission statement, to put people over profits, to put our morals over money, then it's easy to guide every single decision that we make. We don't even have to think about it. We're like, you know what? I understand I can make a bunch of money right now, real fast, if I do this, but if it's not morally or ethically correct, then you have to be able to walk away from that. You have to be able to walk away from that money because you know it's not the right thing to do. And that should be what's guiding all of your actions. So, here we're talking about mending the fracture. Where are our fractures at? So, a massive part of our fractures are between public adjusters, contractors, attorneys, and appraisers, all between each other. So, I would imagine you guys have seen it or been a part of backstabbing, sabotage. I was probably the most shocked. After Hurricane Michael, we opened an office in Panama City, and learning what that Good Old Boys network looked like in Bay County was probably the most surprising part. But understanding what other attorneys were willing to do to sabotage other firms was absolutely fucking mind-blowing to me. Like, disgusting. Okay, yeah, I will. So, I'll start with letting you know a little bit about me, if you don't know already. So, I used to be, okay, because the bar may be listening, Florida bar, okay, the other bars. I used to be scrappy back in the day, absolutely. Where I'm from, you don't talk shit unless you're gonna be about it. Like, absolutely. Like, you talk shit about someone, you could guarantee you were gonna see them face to face, and you better be about it. And now we're in a world where people are on social media talking shit. Like, blows my mind. Like, you won't see me in a fight on social media because I'm afraid I'm gonna pull up to your house. Like, I don't get involved in that, like, at all, right? But so many people are kind of have become so, like, just absolutely, like, I would say blinded by reality. And this is a really common thing people do all the time. And so for me, that has been a huge change. And when I literally was a normal human being and then became a lawyer and learned about those ethic codes and that they were legitimate and you had to follow them, I had to learn a whole different level of control. Absolutely. I had to learn that true power came from my ability to control the person that's inside here who wants to fight, and now be the person that I know has to be the best advocate I can be and control myself. And that's not an easy thing to do at all. Like, if you're scrappy and you know how to fight, like, that's the feeling you get inside. It's the feeling you're gonna get inside to other people in this industry. It's the feeling you'll get inside to insurance companies. And having that control and going, you know what? If I wanna advocate, I cannot be that person. It's the same thing as being a trial litigator. Like, that was huge for me. Like being trained as a trial litigator, like with Stetson, we're #1 in the country. So as a trial litigator, I became a #1 trial advocate when I graduated, and I competed all over the world. And when you're in trial and you're going against an attorney, the games they'll play and how nasty they'll get to win, what they've said about attorneys is mostly true. Like, don't even like most of them myself. So I completely understand. Like, they lie, they're grimy, they play dirty games, and I'm not a dirty game player. No matter what they do, I don't let it ever change me. And that's what I hear a lot of times in this industry. I hear people say this: the insurance company deserves it. This is what they would have done to our clients. And that means you're allowing other people's actions to influence and change how you should behave within your morals. So that's a huge thing. It's understanding right now that power is in that control. So for me, when I hear and found out about that kind of backstabbing, it blew my mind. Because my job is to advocate for my clients and to be the best attorney that I can be and educate everybody else so we can all work together to help people. And in that midst, I have to worry about the bullshit that other people are saying or doing. I mean, we go to these events where there are these educational events we do to the community. We've done them for years. And I found out about a law firm who had contacted the people that were putting on the event and had offered to pay them money to not have our firm there. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing that you can't be on your shit and you're not worrying about your stuff. You're too worried about trying to sabotage somebody else, when what you're really not realizing is you now have destroyed the opportunity for somebody else to also help people. And that's why the backstabbing and sabotaging and bad-mouthing is so bad in this industry, and how it doesn't help our ultimate goal for all of us to be able to protect the insureds together. So the other thing that's important that people should, that I always see, and I'm like, I just don't know if people understand how law works, that there is a level of that behavior that becomes illegal, absolutely illegal and actionable against each other. And so some of those things are, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, is the intentional interference with a business relationship. This is something people will talk about. I'm the attorney that tells contractors, especially because I do a lot of education to contractors, roofers, and their sales guys. I start by saying, listen, you have to put the insured first, whether they're your client or not. So if you go to a house and you're a PA or a contractor, and there is a contract already there, the only thing you should be saying to that homeowner is, you know what? I heard great things about that company. Great PA. Great contractor. Or, you know what? I wish you nothing but the best. If there's any questions you have, let me know. What I don't ever want to hear is you telling me that, oh, well, there's already another PA contract there. There's already another roofer, but he hadn't come back for a while. And we went ahead and signed him up. Like, my guys know, don't call me with that bullshit. Like, no, absolutely not. If you're calling me to tell me that the contractor stole money from them, had taken $30,000 and hadn't done any work and wasn't responding, and you want my help to beat down doors, done. Do it all the time. Like, that's also what I'm famous for. Got no problem kicking in the door of anybody who's taking advantage of the insureds from our side. Like, there are contractors that I know that I can even talk to and be fine with. And they know that we have got into it because I've made them perform on a contract that they took the client's money for. So, but you should not be making it more confusing and more just distrusting of the insured by talking shit. There is enough work to go around. Go to the next house. Say, you know what? Wish you nothing but the best. Any issues, let me know, and go to the next house. Go to the next neighborhood. Like, that's how we work together and we don't interfight. So then we can all work together to fight the insurance companies. So, in talking about that intentional interference with the business relationship, these are the elements of that, and it's a real thing. It may not happen a lot on residential claims, but I'll tell you, mess around with a commercial claim with the wrong person, and this could happen. Absolutely. And it's a real thing. So let me tell you some of those elements of it. So an intentional interference with a business relationship is when you get involved with a potential client that already has a contract with somebody else. And your motives are now to try to intercept that contract to get them to now sign with you. So think about how common that sounds. Everybody knows of an example where that's happened. Everybody knows of where you've had a contract and somebody else has come in the middle of it. So it's all fun and games, right? Until you realize it's actually against the law. And they can have a cause of action. They can sue you. If the client then breaches their contract with the contract that they had, and guess what they're gonna say every time? This is what the insured is gonna say in a deposition. They're gonna say, I didn't really have a problem until the roofer came and he told me about this other company, all these things that, I was just so scared. And at that point in time, they're like, but guess what? You can sign with me. I've seen it in an email from a roofing company where they're literally like, I'll help you get out of that contract. I have an attorney who will help you get out of that contract. All that is evidence of this. And the damages that come along with this are the damages that that person, that roofer, public adjuster, attorney would have had. That money that they would have gained, now you have to pay it to them. So that's how serious it really is. Like, we're all messing around and getting involved with other people's contracts when really you should be walking away from them. You should be helping the insured and working together. I tell people a lot of times, when insureds come to me with any problems that they have, if they're signed with somebody else, I always start by saying, hey, do these things. First of all, I'll call the company and be like, that's how you should help each other. Like, be like, hey, listen, they're saying they haven't heard from you in a month and a half and want to sign with me. Like, hey, roofer to roofer, roofer to roofer, PA to PA. Like, you got to call them back. Like, talk to them. Like, that's the way that we should have the behavior between all of us. And if people know me, that is what I've done. I've called companies. I've called law firms before and been like, or I tell the insured, hey, listen, write an email that says, I need a response ASAP, or I'm going to look for another attorney. Like, that's always a trigger, right? In the attorney world, like, even if we get busy, like, that's the trigger, right? So I say, listen, send that to them. Because I would want someone to do that to me, right? You need to be doing things that you would want somebody to do to you. Think about how much time and fucking effort we put into some of these cases for somebody to come out and rip it from underneath us. So wouldn't you appreciate a call from another person in this industry that says, listen, hey, they called me, they're super upset, like, they're talking all this stuff, they're gonna leave a negative review about you online, I just want you to know, between me and you, because you'd hope they would do that to you. That's how we can switch and mend that fracture that we have in this industry. Another thing is defamation, another cause of action. You talking shit can cost you money. That's what it can do. You talking negatively about another company that causes them any type of damages, it can actually be actionable. And the way defamation works is you have to make a false statement, right? False statement of fact. You make it to somebody else and they turn around and breach their contract because of that, you can find yourself in trouble. And the interesting thing about defamation is that there's defamation per se, which literally says, if you talk shit about somebody, that's fact, that you putting it as a fact and it's not true. Like you say, hey, they stole money, any of those kind of things. And it impugns them, makes them look bad in their business. They don't even have to show that they had damages. It's automatically assumed that that person was damaged by the information that you gave, and then they can come after you for that. So that's how serious it gets. So I always seem to think that the reason why people are so quick to stomp on other people is because of a self-esteem. That's what I think. I think if you go and you're talking shit about another company to a potential client, it's because you don't believe in yourself. You don't believe that you are unique. You are fucking badass and you're the shit. I don't have to stomp on someone else's company and go, listen, this is what I do. This is what I do every day. And I fight fucking hard for insurance all of the time to be the best I can. That's gonna show. So maybe you don't sign with me, but guess what? I'm here if you need anything, and I'm gonna show my value for the rest of the community. Like, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to the next client, right? You have to understand that you bring something to the table and that you will rise. You don't have to rise by stomping on each other. So, why mend the fracture? I always say, if you say that you put insureds first, but then you're going there and talking shit and making it a more difficult process for them, right now the insureds are so fragile, right? They have been betrayed by the insurance company. That's the feeling they already start with. Then when they're hearing from you, talking about other companies and their stuff, it just adds to that. And when we interfight, the confusion and misinformation breeds chaos. And that's what the insurance companies love. They love it. Just like Cal was talking. They love pitting everybody against each other, and that's what they do because it's misdirection. The more interfighting that we all can do, the better it is for the insurance company, because then they look like the hero. And that's what's happening right now. Like with the assignment of benefits in Florida. Like, I have never seen them be so successful at turning regular homeowners against assignment of benefits and PAs. If you're in Florida, you should know. Because any hurricane that happened in Florida, insurers had no idea what a public adjuster was. They didn't. They didn't know until somebody came to their house and explained it to them, and they're like, great idea. I'm gonna get help, I'm gonna get protected, love it. Now, insureds are like all over social media. I'm not signing with no public adjuster. Like, that's their mindset right now, right? And it's our job to help educate them and be like, no, let me explain to you what a public adjuster really does. And even if you're a public adjuster and you meet someone who signed with another public adjuster, you should be backing up the public adjusters as a whole. Same with the attorneys. I've seen attorneys talk shit about public adjusters, and I've seen public adjusters talk shit about attorneys. It's like, guys, we're in this all together. And we all need each other. And we can't do it alone at this point. So it's that chaos you're creating when you do it. And the only person that wins is the insurance company. All right, so us against the insurance company. How can we mend that fracture? I really liked how Steve Patrick talked about, because we're on the same page about how you should behave with the insurance companies. Like I said, I can take things very personal. I'm like, when people are like, business isn't personal, I'm like, yeah, it is. Okay, mine is. Business is personal. Yeah, my personal money went into this company and my personal soul goes into this company every day. So yeah, when you fuck over my business, you're fucking me over. So it definitely is personal. So to say that is one thing. What you have to know is that you should never allow your personal feelings, right, to get out of control. That's really what it is, right? You have to advocate, and that takes an emotional response. But it has to have that kind of control over it. So when dealing with the insurance companies, you have to know how to play the game. That's what it is. It's just like trial. I love trial because it's the best game I've ever played. That's what it is. It's about moves. It's about how quickly you can redirect. It's about when something happens and everything changes, how quickly can you now respond to that, right? And keep your cool. That's really what it is. And understanding people is another huge thing. I majored in psychology, which was massive. I knew I wanted to go to law school, and they said you could major in anything. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, what's interesting to me? And I was like, oh, what's interesting to me was literally learning about serial killers. I was like, done. I love it. Like, want to know why you ate up all those people? Want to know. So I majored in psychology. And so then I also thought understanding people was going to be great because I knew I wanted to be a trial litigator. And I had heard from a trial litigator that I had worked for. He said, listen, jury selection and understanding people is where you win your whole trial, right at the beginning. Understanding why people think a certain way, how to best get the best out of them. And that's what we do is. It's literally saying, I always say this to adjusters when I'm working with them or attorneys. I always say, let me help you. What can I do to help you get to the number we need to get at? That should be your mindset. And with attorneys in the industry, with a lot of them have great relationships with, we're good friends, we've even met in this industry, is because that's what we do. We talk to each other. And I'm like, let's call a spade. Like, we know what happened here. And guess what they're gonna tell me? Like all the time, they'll be like, off the record, this adjuster's piece of shit. Yeah, got an ego, wishes he went to law school, didn't, and behaves that way. So we have to figure out how can we work together to get it over to him. Like we do things where I'm like, we're just like, okay, I think we can get to that number, but I'm gonna need you to email saying this, like write an email that says this, and I'm like, done. Like done. That has to be your mindset, because the egos that exist with the insurance companies, because they believe that they're, holding all the money, especially if you're not a lawyer and you're dealing with them, that ego's massive. It's massive. So if you come at them aggressive and nasty and all those other things, you're not gonna get anywhere with them. They're going to love to push everything along as far as they can and not help you. So your attitude to them has to be, how can I help you? And being respectful. Now, I tell my staff, tell everyone I deal with, you should have a limit, right? So being respectful, but you should show up to the party that you're invited to. So if they push you and push you, it's okay to come back at them eventually. You should be 5 levels underneath them, just like how I do in trial. You should be 5 levels underneath the emotion of the person on the other side. But if they keep on going, you should also be prepared to defend yourself. To say, listen, this is what I know. And at this point in time, I'm gonna go ahead and look for legal counsel for my insured. Like, absolutely. But it's making sure you've gone through those steps. You're understanding the fact that there's an ego involved on the other side. And how do you best manipulate that to get what you want for the insureds? And I see it sometimes. I'll see on social media where they'll say, hey guys, here's what I wrote to the insurance company today. And they'll like write this whole entire thing, and it's like a bunch of shit. And they're like so nasty with the insurance company. And I'm like, literally my only response is, and did they pay? Because I can promise you that nasty message didn't end with that adjuster saying, yeah, you know what, you're right. I definitely should pay more. Like, no, it didn't. Withholding documents is something else I've seen before. As attorneys, we're bound by the rules of evidence. So there are certain things we can say we don't have to produce. But even then, there's a whole legal argument for what's allowed and what's not allowed. And I see sometimes PAs where the insurance company is asking for legitimate documents, and a PA is like, I don't have to give that to you, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You're making it harder for yourself. If you're not sure if you should produce something or not, call a lawyer. Call a lawyer. Like all the lawyers that I know who've been on stage, myself included, we will always answer questions for free. Absolutely, for everybody in this industry. But for you to just take it upon yourself and to not produce documents that you say are too invasive, like I've seen public adjusters object. I'm like, what are you doing? Like it's irrelevant and it's privileged information. I'm just like, no, like absolutely not. You've made it harder, and now you have to unravel it at the end, because that's potentially a violation of those post-loss obligations. Like, don't make it harder for somebody to give you money, right? Yeah, great advice I had learned. Somebody told me, literally, my great-grandfather's friend said, don't ever make it hard for somebody to give you money. They want to give you money, figure out how you get to them. They're like, I will be there tomorrow. I hear people who are like, they're like, oh yeah, I owe you money, okay, and you're like, well, can you send it to me? Can you, it's like, really? Get your ass over there. Go to them. Don't make it hard. And that's what you're doing when you're like, oh, well, I'm not gonna give you those documents. I'm not gonna give you that. You don't need that, all those things. Help them. Help them help you. The other things that we can do, especially if you know our firm, we stand on high integrity of the files. We vet everything that comes in the door. We vet public adjusters we work with. We vet contractors we work with. I don't allow you to just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. It doesn't work. You don't call me and say, I'm on a roof, I see damage. Definitely is a claim. I'm like, really? From what? Is there a storm that happened? Do you have a date? Don't call me asking me to figure out a date of loss. Don't even do that. Because the date of loss has to come from, does anybody know where the date of loss needs to come from? The insured. Because that's the person who will have to be prepared. I don't take a file from the beginning as a trial litigator that I cannot litigate all the way to an appeals process. That's how my mindset is. And that's how I keep my name clean in the industry, and everyone else that I've dealt with names clean in the industry. I'll be the first to tell a new PA that we're working with, we go through their estimate, I say, hey, here are things you don't need to have on them. A water drought company, I'm like, take the emergency after hours bullshit off of it. Like, there are just things that are triggers for insurance companies that piss them off from the beginning. It's just like the conditions at the beginning and stuff that turn out to be a chunk of money. It's like, just figure out something else. Because those are the things that the insurance company is looking for, especially if your estimates start being crazy and out of control. Write for things that are only damaged in connection to that date of loss. Ask the insured. You should be asking the insureds. When you go to a home and you've got old damage and new damage, there should be conversations to say, hey, and if you've been to any of our inspections, if you've ever talked to any of our insureds, those are conversations that happen where we're like, hey, I see this crack here. Do you ever recall seeing that before the storm? That should be a conversation. You shouldn't be going in there, especially shouldn't be going in there and writing an estimate where the insureds aren't there. That should be a trigger number one. If they're not even there and you haven't talked to them about some of those areas, how do you truly know what's from the storm and what's not? Because I'll ask the insurance because I want to make sure they're going to be able to stand behind it. And sometimes they're very honest about it. So I'll tell them, be honest with me. Like, did this happen before? Had you seen it? And they'll be like, you know what? Yeah, I did. I had seen that cracking before. And I'm like, okay. Like, I want to know. And then we're not going to write for it. Or we'll figure out how we can still write for it potentially if something else happened. If there's a crack there, but it also had water damage, great. We get to write for it under the fact that there's water damage. That's how you make sure that you're having honest estimates and you're having an honest conversation with the insurance companies. That's a huge thing I do also. I want to know the other side better than I know mine, and I upfront those arguments to them. Like right now, especially in Florida, just like we've seen massive back in Hurricane Katrina, flood and wind is going to be the biggest fight. So I had a public adjuster call me who calls me all the time, and I always welcome those calls. And it was a great conversation. He said, how should I write the estimate? Should I just write it all together? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. You need to be the one who comes forward with the truth. To say, hey, here is the flood estimate, here is the wind estimate. I'm telling wind, hey, there was flooding. The flooding came up to here. Like, upfronting all of those things to them, not sending to them and be like, well, they should have to figure it out. No, that's not helping mend that fracture with the insurance companies. When you come at them with honesty, then you're more than likely going to get potentially honest back to them. So, also making sure that you're adhering to all of those timelines that everybody talks about. So those timelines of when you're supposed to do something. The other thing you can do, dissolve, playing into that ego with the insurance companies is, they may send something to you that says, hey, within 30 days, we need these documents, okay? I've seen contractors and PAs say things, even attorneys sometimes be like, oh, there's nothing in the policy that says 30 days that you have to respond to documents. So I'm gonna turn it in whenever I can. Really? Why? What you do, you set a timeline for the 30 days. If you can't do it within the 30 days, then out of respect, you go back to the insurance company, send them an email and say, hey, I know you want those documents within 30 days. We're having trouble getting them. We're requesting additional 30 days. That's an ego play, right? It makes him feel like you're respecting them. Now, if they say no, you just ignore them, because at the end of the day, it wasn't a real deadline, but it makes them feel like, hey, you're listening to them, and now potentially you're going to get more money. These things always equate to more money. That's what it does. Thorough documentation. I'll tell you, I'm going to harp about the moisture mapping until I am probably like just really old at this point in time, so I'm not going to stop. I continuously get files where they have ripped everything out, all the walls out, demoed the entire place. But I have no documentation that there was water on those walls. And that's a huge thing. We are at war with the insurance companies, and every single thing you do right now needs to be clean. That's why the boot camp is such an important thing to do. Getting that education, having those mentors in this industry. I heard that you guys public adjusters yesterday were saying that you were having a hard time getting information and people helping, and that's sad, right? I'm sure it felt horrible because that is the mindset people have taken. Like, you would think we're all practicing in the same damn city. Like, that's what you would think at the point in time. And if you come to these conferences enough, it'll blow your mind how small this industry truly is. And it's just us representing the entire country at this point in time. That's where we're at right now. So why wouldn't you say, hey, guess what? Here are my secrets. Here's what I've been doing. They're not gonna compete with you. And let them take those secrets to wherever they're at, even if they happen to be in the same city. But that's how you work together. Mend that fracture. Making sure you have photos and videos and pointing out the damage. That's another huge thing, is that you need to understand the damage that you have. When you're taking photos, taking a bunch, sending me 2,000 damn photos of just shit, of every wall, of everything, it's just like, oh, great, thank you. Let me just rip through this. I'm like, point it out. Especially if you're a PA. If you're a PA and this is the file that you're building, where is that damage? How are you documenting that damage? And a huge thing right now, I'll just add this in, if you're doing hurricane work and you're dealing with contents, that was a huge thing that we were dealing with after Hurricane Michael. Because there was just so much, some of them had so much flooding and there was so much, interior water damage, and a lot of people had contents claims. That's a huge place for the insurance companies to really start bucking back, especially once you get into litigation. So as a public adjuster, this always comes up. And for contractors too, they ask everybody these questions, is, can I get rid of my contents? And a lot of times people are like, yeah, sure, we can get rid of it. I've taken pictures of it. Yeah, that's not enough. Taking pictures of the content's not enough. I need to know how it was damaged, why it's damaged. So taking a picture of a refrigerator, but not showing me the fact that the water had come in through that wall, or showing me the documentation that the wall behind that, where the outlet was, took on water, is not going to guarantee that refrigerator is going to be paid. So you want to make sure you're having that full documentation if they're getting rid of stuff. Like insurers want to throw everything out. They're just like, shh, get it all, get rid of it. Especially now with Hurricane Ian, there's been a public announcement. I don't know where it came from, but if you've seen any footage down there, every single person has gutted their house and has put all of their contents on the street. Like it literally looks like everyone has been evicted. That's what it looks like down there right now. And the sad part is, I literally was at one point, I was trying to tell anyone that would listen, I'm like, did you document this? Is it truly destroyed? I mean, not everything that was in there is all damaged. So you want to make sure that you're having that correct documentation, understand, especially when it comes to contents. Just because you took photos and videos doesn't mean it's guaranteed to get paid by the insurance company, unless you have that further documentation that shows why it actually is not working anymore. How do we mend the fracture? Look at that. Where's Derek? Derek didn't think I can stay in my time. Look at me. Okay? Yeah. Known to talk over. And Derek has a bad back. So Derek's like, don't you dare make me run all over here, giving you the signs, telling you you're done. So how do we mend that fracture? Networking. Obviously what we're doing now. But sharing information, experiences, and failures. Talking about those between each other. Being like, hey guys, I just got screwed. Like, hey guys, just learned this in this plane. Like, going that further step to try to help somebody out, a new public adjuster, a new roofer, like whatever it is, and educating them. Supporting each other directly and indirectly. Indirectly. That's the part that has to be fixed. How do we help each other indirectly? Behind each other's backs. To the insurance company. Another thing, I've heard adjusters tell me, attorneys on the insurance company tell me that other PAs will talk shit about other PAs to the insurance company. It's the worst thing you can do. We have to keep it in-house. Absolutely. We have to be able to call each other. The other thing I see a lot of times is where someone's violated the advertising law, or they put signs up that are this or that. People are like, I'm reporting you to the state. I'm like, first of all, I came from a place where snitches got stitches, so not really my vibe, okay? My vibe is to call them and educate them. I want you helping insurers. I want you to. I don't want you to get arrested. So I call them and say, hey, saw your signs out there. Didn't know if you knew, but there's a new law. If anyone knows about me, that's huge. I give free forms out, free information, especially now with Florida, with how much laws have changed. I have been calling so many companies, our team has, saying, listen guys, just so you know, any contract you sign as of 6 months ago completely changed. It has to have these provisions on it. It has to have a good faith line item estimate. If not, it's a $10,000 fine per word. And they're like, oh shit. Like, signed a bunch of them. I'm like, well, here you go, here's what you need. But that's what you do. Make a phone call to that company. Be like, hey, just so you know, because we're together, we're in this together. We're at war together. What benefit do I have by calling the insurance company or calling the Department of Insurance or whoever else you tried to call to tattletale on this company? That's not having each other's backs. That's that indirectly. Okay. The other thing we can do is we can party together. So, where's Randan? All right. Let me show you how. So this was PPA, because I'm all about getting everyone together, especially different contractors and roofers we work with. I'm like, guys, talk to each other. Understand what people are charging. You're creating the reasonable market rate. There's no reason why we can't all hang out together and be like, hey, what are you charging a square? Okay, this is where I'm at, this is where you're at. So we all can be reasonable together. Okay, so how do I know how to start this? So this is a PPA event in Galveston. Okay, we love some good karaoke. So this is contractors, public adjusters, attorneys, all different people in different areas of the industry. Oh, here we go. Everybody in the industry. Like, this is all the people that are in the industry. Also, I own a nightclub in Tampa, Florida. So it's Club Piranha. We're 5 floors in Ybor. You guys are always welcome. I tell everybody, come down. You will have an amazing time. We'll get you in, tables, bottle service, all that fun stuff. But we also party there together. Like, this is a place where I invite other law firms. And I'm like, guys, we can all do this together. Like, all different people in the industry. But that's kind of the idea and the mindset about it is like, we've got to come together as a whole, but it starts really within. And we have to look at us all together as being partners in this. Not another company, but another partner. We're all partners in this together. We'll give you some more information. Like I said, here's my personal cell phone. If you ever have any questions, comments, concerns, any of that kind of stuff, you can always reach out to me. If I don't know the answer, I'll help you guide you in the right direction. But like I said, is that we are here together. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to speak. I'm always willing to educate if anyone needs any help on anything, a policy review or what the law is in that area. I can absolutely help on that. But like I say, is that you really should be going from something like this kind of conference to think about not just getting information about, the law and all that stuff, but how do we mend the fracture? How do I make this a better industry and recognize that it's us against the insurance company? Because if we don't, you destroy our industry. That's where it's at. And I think if you've been in here long enough, you'll know that's what every single state is moving to do. And they're winning. They absolutely are winning. So I thank you guys for the opportunity to speak.
We've got Chris and Jack coming up for part 2, and then we're gonna get to lunch after that. Chris Corvino and Jack Hayes.
First off, I feel better about all the F-bombs I dropped yesterday. I think Ken set the record, so. I feel better about myself, so. Lucky you guys, you get us again for the next half hour before lunch. We're gonna talk about building a team, files and winning these large losses. So I've been fairly fortunate in my long stellar career here of getting a ton of large losses, and it's not because of going on roofs and doing this, okay? It's really not. It helps to get known on social media, but at the end of the day, you gotta perform, and the reason why we get more and more and more is because we perform. And I have little to do with that. I've got to know myself the last few years and know that I don't know everything, and I wanna be, our job as a public adjuster is to prove the loss, right? That's our only job, okay? So we bring experts in.
We'll go to the slide. This is gonna be what we call the mandatory threes. And this is probably one of the 3 most important topics that I personally feel should be talked about. So Jack is really good at number 1. So Jack, if you want to take over number 1, and I'll jump to number 2. Number 1 is the importance of a team being built.
So, once again, I learned a while ago, I can't do all this stuff, right? I can't write Xactimate. I can't write about a report, a moisture map. So what we've done is we do an EOS system in our company. So my job is to bring work in and have a vision of the company. And I was asked when we first started doing this, what's my agenda for our firm? And my simple answer was, I want to be the most respected PA firm in the country. Respected on both sides. By my peers, by the insurance companies, by our vendors, and by everybody in this room. And that's our challenge, and we work on it every day, and it's hard as hell. But what we do is we invest in our team. We bring them to events. We train the living hell out of them, and we trust them to do the right thing. I started hiring people with no experience. We talked about that this morning, because a lot of us have a lot of bad habits, okay? So we've had some success bringing people in to train our what we do, how we do it, and why we do it, right? The biggest thing our firm has, and all our vendors, is passion. I look for that number 1. I don't care how many years of experience you have, how many licenses you have, what your GPA was, man. I look for people that give a damn about what we do, because without that drive and passion, it ain't gonna work, okay? I was a 2.0 student at Indiana University, and all my roommates had 4.0s, and I'm doing okay. So it ain't about the GPA all the time, guys. Staff member placement, I think TJ is gonna give a little quip about this later on today, but it's all about the seats in the bus. You don't have to be, if your talent is bringing claims in, thrive upon that. If your talent's writing estimates, thrive upon that. If your talent is adjusting claims, thrive upon that. We have a very narrow path of what we do. Everybody has a role, we stick to that role. I don't want my adjusters running Xactimate, because it costs us money to do that. I want them submitting and negotiating. I want my environmental team writing reports. I don't want Chris on a roof. Number 1, you don't know about the roofs, right? So we try to stick in our lanes. It's a big thing. Man, the last 2 here are a big deal. I try to do a great job of thanking my guys and girls every day for what they do for us as a firm, because they're the ones doing all the work. They're the ones I've had guys living in campers. I've had guys just in hurricane, we were in New Orleans, man, living in trailers for months on end, driving an hour and a half in every day, doing stuff. And that's a choice they make to work hard for us. We want to make sure we value them, we appreciate them. Little cool stuff we do on the side for them, sending them a bottle of wine without them, just little stuff that means a lot to them. It means a lot to us that we appreciate them. Ooh, this last one, not a great thing for me. I used to think it was I used to think it was do the Jack Hanks way and it'll all be fine. Okay. I got older, I got a little wiser, maybe a little softer. I've learned the pyramid's upside down. I'm on the bottom of that pyramid. Okay, it's upside down. I work for them, they don't work for me. It's different. And once I changed that mindset a few years ago, our career and our firm launched tremendously. It's just, I listened. I turned down 31 large claims in Fort Myers because my business people didn't think it made sense for us to take it. And I'm like, damn, that would not have happened 3 years ago. But I listened to them, and they were actually right for us not taking it. I would have taken it 2 years ago, but I didn't do it this time. So listening and learning from your team is such a big thing. Us as public adjusters are mostly type A, very driven people. And we have our blinders and our earmuffs on too much. I know I do, and I work on that every day, is listen, 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 listen. And when I finally got to the point, I put my ego aside and just started running a business with compassion and caring and just trying to be a better person, it all starts making more sense, man. Making money in this business is easy. It's almost too easy, I want to argue. Getting licenses is too easy, but being a good human and listening and giving a damn and respecting both sides is what it's all about, okay? Respect your vendors, respect your clients, respect the insurance companies. Even though it's really hard not to hit that send button, believe me, I know. Don't hit send all the time, man. I hate that stuff. So listening is a big thing, and we're trying to do a better job of that at our firm. I think our success is growing because of a lot of these things. Chris?
And number two, the importance of an expert personnel. Jack's going to be hitting on a lot of these because obviously I'm not in the firm, I'm a vendor of that. So these type of things is what he's been successful at in building his firm, which obviously the knowledge needs to be given to anyone that wants to listen and build to that level. So he's very good at the expert personnel, bringing in the right people in that aspect. So fortunately, I'm one of them in that category. But the structural engineer, the roofing expert, the environmentalist, the general contractor, contents inventory specialist that are here tonight, and the OSHA, which is Mr. Kevin, is here as well. So those are huge.
So if there's one thing that drives me insane about our business is we wait for the attorneys to bring those people in. No offense, I love my attorneys. But as a public adjuster, we're hired to prove the loss, right? You gotta do this stuff to be successful. You can't just sit back and write an exactament report and send it in and they're gonna go pound sand. Well, of course they're gonna tell you that, right? So build a team around you and these are the guys that know everything. Without Chris, we would not have the 1/10 of our success, but you gotta trust these guys, understand, and have these conversations. And it's expensive as hell. I'm not gonna kid you. To do a large loss the correct way, to bring a structural engineer in, an environmentalist, we work with Kevin all the time. It's a big thing, and it takes a lot of money. However, if you plan it right, you gotta talk to the insurer about investing in their loss, right? To get $5, $6, $8, $9, $10 million on a claim, you can't just walk in with a 17 line item estimate, which I've seen. You got to invest in this stuff and do it right, and have the right people involved. Otherwise, there's no point. Don't flip it to the attorney. Transfer the attorney right away if you can't handle it, right? And guys, biggest thing, if you're not ready to take large losses, partner with the company that you can with and do it with, because it's going to kill the industry. And the insurance companies know this. They know who the players are. Don't play games. They know. Okay? They know, really.
Absolutely. And then 1 and 2 leads to number 3, and that's your duty and the commitment to the policyholder. So if you build the team and you build the expert personnel, your duty to the policyholder is to set up for success. And that's, improving the loss by having the right team in place. And the communication, obviously, we hit on that yesterday. Everybody's been talking about that in the last 2 days, and answering the phone and just, being there for your policyholder, whether it's good news or bad news, they just want to talk to you. They hired you for a reason. So be that reason to make sure that you improve the loss. Jack can hit on the rest of the things, the fees and percentages.
Our fees? Don't negotiate your fees. Stop with the 3 or 4 or 5% bullshit, please. Stop. You're worth more. You guys are worth more. Thank you.
Don't try to beat the next man out.
No. Don't be the cheapest guy on the block. You get what you pay for. I get asked all the time to cut our fees. I'm like, why? This is what you want. You want the A team, you want the B team, or the C team. I don't, that's fine. You want to do it at 3%? I can't do it. I lost a $21 million flood claim in Naples last week because somebody went down to 6. I'm like, I'm going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Did you still have me right? What? Go ahead.
The race to the bottom.
Yep.
Race to the bottom.
You want to be in.
We gotta stop it. And there's huge firms, you know who they are, there's huge firms that are huge firms. And I'm sick of it. Stop it. I don't. I know Ron doesn't. There's no reason to, guys.
And that's it, what Candace talked about in the presentation, the fracture within. That is a fracture, and that causes controversy, that causes distrust, that causes people going back and forth, talking about the other person backstabbing. It's just uncalled for.
I mean, the state of Florida is already up our butts to cut our fees down. They're having a legislative session in a couple months to try to cut our fees.
December 12th.
Yeah, guys, we're causing that by somebody always undercutting us. Very, very, very rarely am I on a claim with another PA. We're not really selling the claim. We're explaining what we do. That's the sale. Having people understand what the hell we do for a living and why we do it and why our fee is 10% or sometimes 20% of whatever that number is, but don't reduce your fee. Have some confidence in your firm and what you all do. You know, success ain't cheap, right? Having great vendors is not cheap. These guys are valuable as hell, and they deserve to be paid a premium for their services. I can call Chris, my other vendors, Todd Stern. They'll be out to claim the next day. But you know why? Because they know it's important, and that's what they do. They have pride and they care. Okay?
Absolutely. And explain the truthful time frame. I wanted to make sure that we put that bullet point in there. Obviously, I don't represent clients, I'm not a PA, I'm a vendor, but I hear by being sometimes, most of the time, the first on the scene for that PA, for that attorney, they always ask, how long is this process? How long is it going to take? I was told it's going to be, pretty quick. We can get all this paperwork in. And, unfortunately, I have to tell them to refer back to their PA. But in my mind, I'm thinking, this is not a short process. This is going to be a long process. And be truthful with them so they know what to expect. And don't put you in a bad situation when you have to lie to them.
Ron, that large claim you had, how long was that, Ron?
The one that settled last year?
Yeah.
The time I had it, or?
The whole time.
Well, we were originally scheduled to go to trial on March 23rd, 2020. Anybody remember what happened on March 21st? They shut down the country.
So on a large loss, my first thing in my mouth, they always want to know how long is it going to be? I'm like, we're going to be married for a year if it goes well. And people go like, oh my God. The other guy told me 60 days. I'm like, he's full of shit. He's full of shit.
I wish.
I would drop dead in 60 days if I got a claim paid on a multi-million-dollar claim. So once again, part of the problem we're having in the fracture is there's our competition, other PAs, other vendors, even some attorneys are like promising stuff that's not true. It's garbage, and it doesn't help, guys, because all of a sudden the 98% of us telling the truth, or we look like a-holes, and 99.999% of the time, at the 61st day, when the estimate hasn't been written and proof of loss has been turned in and no money's been exchanged, us as a group are assholes because that guy lied to their client. Please don't do that. If it's a large loss, it's a year. By the time you get it estimated, get it settled, get your proof of loss in, negotiate, get the building permit, get the building materials, which you can't even get half the time anymore. They can't get tile in Florida for 8 months. You gotta tell these people this stuff, man, because their lives are at stake and they have to make business decisions on this claim. And us sugarcoating stuff and not laying it out in front of them, it doesn't help them. Their ALE may run out. They may only have 6 months of ALE. What are they gonna do in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th month? They gotta start thinking about that. So us hiding information from our client, no, stop it, please. Sorry if I'm preaching, but I get very passionate about this kind of stuff, so. Right? Enough is enough, Cal. Enough is enough of all this stuff, right?
And that's what we're here for, is to try to just, if we can change one person to listen, that's where we accomplish our goal. Policy language and policy litigation.
So when I was a younger PA, way back when, I used to say, turning over claims to my attorneys, I was a failure. And it took me forever to realize that, you know what, I'm not a failure, I didn't hit the home base. I got the third, I couldn't get him home, and bringing my legal team in that's the best thing for my insurer. And then my ego kept getting in the way, and I'm like, damn, Hank, you failed, you didn't get him home. Well, guess what, there's some claims we can be, the biggest frustration I have is I know I'm right, my stuff is right, my submission's right, my facts are all right, and I can still be told no. because I can't get their attention, the guy I need to get their attention to. That's what the attorneys do. They can get to that next level that we can't get to sometimes. Because I need the insurance company to make a business decision. Is it worth the risk to go on a trial on a $9 million claim with bad faith involved, or pay the damn claim? Sometimes I can't always get there. Okay, so I have before we start the process, I warn my clients up to this. Maybe. We may have to go to court on that. We'll never go to court, right? It'll settle on the stairs a few times. But you gotta talk about this. Once again, you gotta let them be okay. It's their decision where we go or not, right? But you gotta give them information. If you don't give them the information, make their decisions on, you're not helping them. Don't hide stuff in these insurance. They're smart people. We're dealing with their property and their livelihoods. That's their most valuable asset, is their home and their business. And we need to be respectful of that.
Is there any questions on this before we move on?
No, other than your arrangement with attorneys, I've done it very little.
Okay.
I've always tried to do it myself, but is there enough money after, we're trying to mend this thing?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Before we all get involved in a litigation, I give 3 names, right? I give 3 law firms out. I want my client, because everybody has a different personality, right? I need my client to match up with somebody that they're gonna have a relationship with, because you think we have a long process. Litigation crap may take a year or 2. So it's a long, arduous thing. So I try to match them up personality-wise with a law firm that would make sense for them. We have a quick Zoom call, we introduce everybody, and then my client, I don't make them, we'll take a few days and relax and think about it, right? And we forewarn them on the process, and there's difficult conversations there, okay? But you gotta get them, you just gotta have them understand that you did everything you could and you can't get them home, okay? You're not a failure, you didn't screw the claim up, you just can't get there. You can't get the right guy's attention, so, part of it. But I have 3 or 4 law firms I work with that are just good people, and they care, and we have a rapport. And I call them all the time for advice, because I don't always I'm a horrible client for our law firms, but we have great relationships with our law firms. Does that make sense? Okay.
So moving on to that, this is a little bit of documentation based on facts and non-biased approach. I hit on this a little bit on part 1, and a lot of other speakers have hit on this as being non-biased. I really can't speak on structural engineering or roofers or content specialists, because I'm not a content specialist and I'm not a structural engineer. But it's very important that you have these guys on your team. Obviously, by being in the industry as long as I have, that the structural engineer can improve if the building is ragged, if it's got structural damage, and the documentation of that is crucial to either get total loss or get a whole roof framing system done. So all of these bullet points are very, very important to have these people on your team. Kevin, I'm sorry I didn't have enough room on my slide for the visual here. But obviously your documentation and having a roofing expert that knows all the layers, knows that that he can do a core sample and it's solid content. So we have one of the best content specialists in the room tonight, documenting all of that. That's crucial. If you want to, Candace hit on that earlier, most of all of that stuff would already be to the road, and you don't have 2,000 photos in a spreadsheet built and getting it over to your clients to start putting prices on there. They just take a couple photos and think that it's going to be covered. Well, that's not the case. So it's very important to get the guys in there to do that first before they throw it all to the road. Because once it's to the road, it's in piles, it gets further damaged, rain, wind, picks, whatever it may be. Looters, all your refrigerators got picked up by scrap guys last week. So getting back to the environmental part of that, I can speak heavily on that because that's what I do. It's very important that we get in there immediately to make sure that we get our asbestos samples, get all the proper moisture readers, get our Matterport, get our drone photos. A lot of mitigation guys and environmental consultants don't realize how important a drone is. They think, oh, I'm not the exterior guy. I'm not the exterior guy. I want to show where that water came in, and I want to show that it's going to create an opening. I want to show that that roof has been tarped and to prevent further damage. Our Matterports are very important, obviously, for all the documentation, but it's also important that I have that floor plan to create that scope, and I have that floor plan to give my client the blank ESX file. They're not gonna have an ESX file based off of just what my report is. I'm in there. I owe that to them. That is my job. It's one click of a mouse and $159 to have a true sketch drawn up on Matterport. So why not do it? Do the extra mile for your client.
And guys, if you're waiting for the insurance company to do all this stuff, you guys are nuts. Get your asses in there, get your specialists in there, and get the claim moving in the direction it needs to be. A lot of guys wait for the insurance company for the okay. No, man, we're hired to do this.
Yes.
We are hired to do this.
You wouldn't believe how many conversations just get sparked and the light up on the adjuster's face for young associates I meet out on the jobs every day that says, hey man, I'm gonna save you 4 hours of scoping this hotel or whatever the case may be because I have an ESX file for you. I've already provided one to my client. What does it matter if I send that to the insurance carrier or the adjuster? I just saved him a bunch of time and now I'm on his good side. I'm here to help.
And
I already have it, so why be a prick about it?
And it's transparency, right? We want to deal with the same base of facts and information for both sides. We can both make an opinion and present our cases, right? Our job is to prove the loss. Their job is to not pay the loss, right? Or find not to cover the loss, right? But we got to do our job, and 1,000 people have said it today and yesterday. Help the carrier get to the point where they can write the check. That is our freaking job. Not sitting back and waiting and asking for the check. You tell them what they owe. Here's what you owe because of this is
Please, I encourage you to go double check my measurements, go double check that agreement.
Hell yeah.
Are all done. Here it is. We're making it easier for you. Do your job. I'm not here, but this is the helpfulness that we will grant you to make sure that we see that we're on both sides and we're both here to hopefully protect and ensure. On the one side is, if you choose not to be, then we're coming at you with facts. So
facts win claims.
yes.
Hope, once again, I'm gonna keep preaching this. Hope is not a business plan, guys. Hoping to send in your Xactimate without all the proper documentation is not gonna get that claim bought. It's not. This will every 99.99% of the time. Right.
And I'm glad Candace hit on something in her presentation leading up to ours. The next slide that we're about to show is what I feel is probably the most 3 important documentations that you're going to have. Obviously, your structural engineer is super important. Your roofer is very important. But the next 3 documentations that I'm going to show you is what a mitigation company and definitely for sure an interior consultant should provide you. What that's going to do is that's going to basically set the whole claim up for success. If your mitigation company and your interior consultant documents the proper files and gives you all the proof in the world to go to war for that file, your contractor shouldn't have a problem because if I can get it one that's coming out, he shouldn't have no trouble getting it back in. So a lot of guys in here and across the industry think that we need that GC's numbers to be on point. We need that GC's numbers to show all of that. That's not the case. We need the mitigation company and the interior consultant to have his documentation solid because everything else behind that follows. So these 3 documents is what you should have in your file every job. Large law, residential, it does not matter. When I go out to a job, I'll produce the very first document that I produce, whether it's a fire, whether it's a mold, whether it's a water, you gotta produce a protocol. So the first part of that is going to be your service authorization. We want to prove to them that we've been hired by the policyholder, not the carrier, not the PA, not the attorney. We want to be hired by the policyholder. We have the best interest of the policyholder at heart. Your licenses, why you earned them, show them. You earned them. Tell them what you're about. Tell them what it is. Show them what they're up against. If they want to balk at all of our information, hire somebody that's got equal or better than what I have. If not, my documentation is going to trump theirs. Second thing is your air quality testing. As you can see, I don't know if you can see up there, but some of those are red and purples. That's before demo's been done. That's before anything's been done in the home. That's right there is going to warrant your ALE to kick in. That one little simple document right there with 1, 2, 3, 4 air qualities. I think I have more than that house, but 4 air qualities in that hole shows your policyholder and the carrier that that home cannot be lived in. It's inhabitable. That's gonna kick in for your AOE. That's the proof that you have. That's the proof that you need. There's no other proof that can show besides ceilings caving in, obviously, but if you don't have extensive damage, then that's the proof that you need that the ductwork is contaminated. Your air is not good. They can't stay there.
Once again, the desk adjuster in Omaha, Nebraska is not gonna know without that.
Yeah, exactly.
They haven't been there. The IA was there for 14 minutes.
Now, and remember that this water mitigation probably is, this report is getting there into the carrier's hands before the adjuster's even there. So he knows all of this. He knows what he's up against before he even steps foot on that job. He knows what the status of the job is. Getting back into the Matterport. So we produce a floor plan that's going to get marked up. We want to give them a solid scope of a moisture mapping. Hey, all of these walls in purple right here is a 4-foot flood cut because of this. All that in red over there, the ceilings need to come out because of this. We want to lay it all out to them. There's nothing hidden. The facts are the facts. Then we go in, obviously, to your asbestos testing. There's so much controversy around asbestos right now that I put it all. Every single job that I do is getting tested. Plain and simple. You got materials that have asbestos that was produced in 2000s. And we're still finding it. And it's just get it done. We know there's a lot of exclusions of asbestos, but then there's not. But at the same time, the asbestos goes back to what Kevin was talking about, keeping the worker safe. If you know that it's hot, or if you assume that it's hot, just get it tested so you know what direction you need to have for your workers. If it comes back negative, then fantastic. You don't have to do. You can just follow your regular protocol. But what duty do we have as contractors and mitigation companies to assume or not even care about it being hot for asbestos and just send workers in there? What if you send them in there and it's hot and you comes back and they get sick? Guess who didn't test? Guess who sent them into a hot zone? You. You see all of these ads on TV about mesothelioma, asbestos lawsuits, all of that. You guys are responsible if you do not get it tested to at least have the proof that your job is not hot. Scope and Matterport, that's all of that. The industry standards, all that should be in there. Your photographs, your moisture mapping, this should be the whole life of the start of the file. That should be in a mold protocol and a water mitigation report. I write that. The client in turn gives that to the mitigation company. Hopefully they follow it, but at the same time it still gets turned into the carrier. The next one, this is huge for mitigation companies. I don't know if you have anybody in here that's mid, but I'm telling you guys this is because this is what you need to request and demand from any of your mitigation and environmentalist vendors. You have to get this. Operational progress report. We want a revised floor plan. If this floor plan here is different than that floor plan because you opened up the walls and you found more damage, document it. We want to show the supplemental items that was never seen behind the walls. Like these two photos over here, you would never see that you had damage in that wall until you open it up. You would never see on the third photo that you had mold on the back side of that cabinet without taking it out. How would we know that that mold is there? We assumed it on our first initial inspection because the wall tested wet. But the carrier is assuming that we're just going to detach and reset that cabinet. Now I have proof that that cabinet has to be removed and replaced. So all of this stuff right here needs to be documented while that mitigation company is working. That's very, very important. Your photographs of the moisture readings. We want to make sure that we test that when they remove that carpet. We want to test and check the moisture of that subfloor. We couldn't check that subfloor on our initial inspection. We didn't know that needed to be dry. It might need to be removed. It might have bad insulation underneath this raised house. Some things that we can't find on our initial inspection need to be done by the mitigation company to warrant more charges or back our initial findings. Photographs of microbial growth, your photographs of your damaged areas. These two next ones are very big. The photographs of the dumpsters, your personnel and PPE, and your equipment on the job sites. How many times did you have an adjuster say, there's no way, I'm calculating this demo up, and you should only need about 300 square feet of a dumpster. Well, they didn't know that you had to take into consideration for the cabinets. You didn't know all of this. So the photographs of the dumpsters with the time stamp on there how many dumpsters you use goes a long way to save the mitigation guys and not have extra charges that your client might have to pay out of pocket if the insurance company, you don't have to prove it. So all those little photographs is what I determined to be mandatory from the mitigation company to do that. Now I inspect, I'm not there sitting on the jobs all day long while the guys are mitigating it, but I do pop in to my jobs at least every other day to take my own photos, because obviously they're taking their photos and I can't defend that if they're good photos, but I still want my own photos for my own deposition purposes if I can call it. So the operational report backs up any additional charges, but also shows that the proof is facts. Your number one report that we're going to war with, and we're stating that all this is damaged, is backed by facts. Facts and facts. So then we get into the third, probably one of the most underrated, most important documentations that is in the market, in the industry right now. In the state of Florida, right now, there are so many mitigation companies that are not hiring a third party to come behind them to issue a certificate of completion. What this does is that it's a third party that's coming in to photograph the scope to make sure that it was properly done based off of the original damage and also the damage that we determined during mitigation. We want to warrant that. We want to show them that, hey, all this equipment that we're charging for got these studs down to an industry standards. We want to show them that all of these studs are dry because of the equipment that we put in. We want to show them that we took air quality samples. This is number one when we started. This is number two here. That is a passing air quality. So that means that our clients are safe to start rebuild with no mold spores based off of number one, where we had a ton of mold spores. And also too, what that does is that warrants that the contractor can get started, and we share that liability. If for some reason that mitigation company doesn't follow my protocol, guess who's responsible? They are. If they follow my protocol and something happens, guess who's responsible? I am. I'm responsible. So when we go through, why does it cost so much for this? Well, we're sharing a liability. It's not just me going taking some documentations out there and some photos. We're sharing a liability. If something happens, one of us or both of us didn't do something right. So it's very, very crucial that we get these certificate of completions, the dry logs. I'm pretty sure everybody in this room has been requested dry logs from an insurance carrier. That seems to be very repetitive right now. That is their go-to. Whenever you turn in your invoices, send me the dry logs. And 9 times out of 10, you don't even have them. So you gotta contact the mitigation company. They gotta get it over to you. You gotta get it to the adjuster, and you've lost weeks. Probably weeks, if not days of time, just for one simple documentation. But at the same time, they should be doing it anyway because their dry logs pays and it's a proof of the equipment. They needed it for an amount of time. They tracked all of these studs. They tracked the bottom plate, showing that, it was high. Now we're medium. Now we're almost close to there. Now we're done. 4 days of drying. It's tracking. It's tracked. And they should automatically have that in their file. The post-test lab results of passing is very, very important. And also the photographs of a clean and safe work site. Whenever you have a clean and safe work site, you can get your final cleaning, you can get your OSHA, your charges that they followed everything, they had all of their stuff tagged and ready to go. So hitting back on these 3 documents, if you do not have these in your file from a mitigation standpoint before contractor gets there, it's very important that you request these documents, because this sets the tone for the rest of the claim after that. So, cool, no problem. Is there any questions on this? Yes, sir.
Mitigating.
Yes, sir.
You're doing the asbestos and stuff like this.
Yes,
These walls that come out, they have lead in the paint.
Yes, sir.
Are your guys being able to remove those kind of elements without, getting them pre-approved as far as lead and asbestos? As far as mitigating, those walls are coming out, but, are they going to pay for the lead?
My personal and professional opinion on that is that, obviously needs to be tested first to make sure that it is. Then you obviously got to read the policy to see if there's any exclusions in there. But that's arguable, because if you have water damage inside your wall and it does test hot for the asbestos, it tests hot for the asbestos in your mud, just because you have an exclusion for the asbestos doesn't mean that you just leave it. You can't leave it. You have a duty to mitigate your damage.
Just make sure it's documented.
It's documented, you have that, you read the policy, but at the same time, it does warrant charges for asbestos because that you got more plastic containment, you got more PPE, you got air quality monitoring while those people have been there. So it brings it to a whole nother level of
Just as a mitigator, I mean, they have to do their job, and just as long as it's documented, just do it and bill it.
Yes, absolutely. But also too, you need to make sure that your mitigation company has all that HERA and NESHAP and OSHA requirements to abate mold, abate asbestos. A lot of mold companies don't do asbestos because of the liability and how much of the process is different for that. And the process of the mitigation is not different. It's the process of all the extra safety items that go in to abate asbestos. Yep, that's pretty much what we have. If no one has any other questions, we'll get to lunch and.
You see the theme of all this, guys? We're part of the fraction by not doing this stuff the same way every time and being accurate with facts, okay? If we get anything across you guys, that be professional and be better than the carrier. Be better than the carrier. It's gonna take a lot, but we gotta be perfect every time. We gotta be perfect every time.
And this is just one trade. We go back to this list right there, and you should have 6 to 7 to 8 documents that are like that to win this file. That was just mine. That's just me. I'm not a roofer. I don't know anything about it.
How many PAs have been written on engineers? Everybody here know? You?
Oh, sorry.
Is there a question that's on? No?
What was your question?
What was your question?
Oh, how many PAs been in engineering firms then? Okay, good. If you don't, you're doing it wrong. Okay, we're not engineers. We're adjusters. Okay.
I didn't spend the night at the Holiday Inn Express.
That's true, you did. Or Trump Plaza. Right? Cool. Guys, we appreciate it. Being a great PA is hard. Work hard.
All right, guys, let's get lunch. We'll be back at 1:15. We're gonna take an hour. It's 12:15, right? Yeah, so 1:15.